The rifle felt lighter than it should have. Sergeant Maya Reeves wiped down the barrel with a cloth that had seen better days. Her movement slow and deliberate, while the men around her laughed like she was the punchline to a joke she hadn't heard yet. The outdoor range at Fort Kearney stretched wide under a Kansas sun that didn't care who you were, and right now, Maya was nobody. At least that's what the cluster of officers 20 feet away seemed to think. "Look at this," one of them said, loud enough that he wanted her to hear. "They're letting nurses qual now? What's next, the kitchen staff?" She didn't look up. The bolt slid back into place with a click that satisfied something deep in her chest. 500 yards downrange, the targets waited like patient ghosts. "Sweetheart, you lost?" Another voice, this one belonging to a lieutenant whose name tape read Foster. He walked over with that swagger some men mistake for confidence. "Medical tents are back that way." Maya stood, slinging the rifle across her shoulder. No insignia, no rank, just the plain white uniform of a contract nurse and a name tag that said Reeves, M. She met his eyes for exactly 1 second. "Just here to shoot." "Yeah?" Foster grinned, turning back to his buddies. "This ought to be good." She moved to the firing line without waiting for permission. The range master, a grain captain named Hollis, looked between her and the officers with the expression of a man who'd seen enough military nonsense to fill a library. "You qualified on this system, ma'am?" "I am." "Lane 3. On your time." Maya dropped into position. The rifle settled against her shoulder like coming home. 800 meters. Wind from the southwest at maybe 6 knots. Elevation adjustment, 2 clicks. The world narrowed to breathing and sight picture and the tiny mechanical press of her finger taking up slack. The first shot punched through the morning quiet. Then the second, third, fourth, fifth. 18 seconds from first to last. "Downrange," the spotter's voice crackled over the radio, flat and professional. 5 hits. All center mass." The laughter died like someone had cut its throat. Foster stepped forward, squinting at the targets through his own scope. When he lowered it, his face had gone the color of old paste. That's not possible. Not at that distance. Not that fast." Maya stood, brushing dust from her knees. She didn't smile, didn't gloat, just looked at him with eyes that had seen things these parade ground soldiers couldn't imagine. "Wrong place, you said?" "Who the hell are you?" "Just a nurse." But the way she'd breathed, controlled, measured, the rhythm of someone who'd fired under pressure until it became muscle memory. The way she'd handled the weapon, not like medical training, not like annual qualification, like something else entirely. Captain Hollis watched her with the kind of attention you give a puzzle you can't quite solve. Because nurses didn't shoot like that. Combat medics maybe on their best day. But this woman had just outperformed half the marksmen on base without breaking a sweat. If you want to know who Maya Reeves really is and why a nurse shoots like a ghost-trained sniper, stay with me until the very end. Drop a like, leave a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. Now let's find out what happens when pride meets something it can't explain away. The officers didn't disperse after her run. If anything, they closed ranks, a small wall of egos trying to patch the hole Maya had just blown through their afternoon. Foster stood at the center, arms crossed, jaw working like he was chewing on something bitter. Behind him, 3 other men in various ranks whispered among themselves, throwing glances her way that ranged from confused to hostile. Maya returned the rifle to the rack, each movement economical. No wasted motion, no flourish. She'd learned a long time ago that silence made men nervous, and nervous men made mistakes. "I want to see her credentials," Foster said, not to her but to Hollis. "Right now." The range master pulled a clipboard from his station, flipped through papers that rustled in the wind. "She's cleared. Contract medical staff. Been on base 2 weeks." "Doing what?" "Nursing." Hollis didn't look up. "Says so right here." "Nurses don't shoot like that." "Well," Hollis finally met Foster's eyes. "This one does." Maya shouldered her bag. Time to leave before this turned into something that required explanations she wasn't ready to give. She'd come here for the range time, nothing more. A chance to keep her skills sharp while the bureaucracy processed her contract. Simple, quiet, exactly how she wanted it. "Hey!" Foster's hand landed on her shoulder. Not rough, but firm enough to stop her. "We're not done here." She looked at his hand until he removed it. I've got a shift in 20 minutes. Then you'll be late. He stepped in front of her, blocking the path back to the parking area. The other officers fanned out, not quite surrounding her, but close enough. Because I want answers. Where'd you train? Army Medical Course? Fort Sam, Houston. Bullshit. Fort Sam doesn't produce that. He gestured toward the targets where her grouping sat tight as a fist. I've been shooting competitively for 8 years. That was world class. So either you're lying about who you are or something doesn't add up. Maya kept her voice level. My personal time is my own. How I use it isn't your concern, Lieutenant. It is when you're on a military installation, making my men look like amateurs. Then maybe your men should practice more. One of the others, a major whose face had gone red, stepped forward. That's insubordinate? I'm a civilian contractor. Can't be insubordinate if I'm not under your command. The major's mouth opened, closed. He looked at Foster like he was hoping the lieutenant had a better play. Foster, for his part, seemed to be cycling through options, trying to find the angle that would let him regain control of a situation that had already slipped through his fingers. Hollis cleared his throat. Gentlemen, and ma'am, range is closing in 10 minutes. Unless you're all planning to qualify again, I suggest you clear out. Nobody moved. Maya adjusted her bag. Excuse me. She walked past Foster, close enough that he could have reached out again, but smart enough not to. The parking lot sat 100 yards away across open ground, heat shimmer making the asphalt dance. Her truck, a beat-up Silverado she'd bought cash in Missouri, waited in the civilian section, far from the neat rows of military vehicles. She made it halfway before Foster called out, "This isn't over." She didn't turn around, just kept walking. Inside the truck, she let herself breathe, both hands on the wheel, head back against the seat. The rifle work had felt good, better than good, like flexing a muscle that had started to atrophy. But the attention was exactly what she'd been trying to avoid. 2 weeks of quiet shifts at the base hospital, patching up training injuries and administering flu shots. 2 weeks of being invisible. One afternoon at the range, and she'd blown it. Her phone buzzed, a text from Dr. Vance, the hospital director. Need you in trauma. Multi-vehicle accident inbound. Maya started the engine. Work she could do. Work made sense. Clean wounds, stabilize patients, move to the next crisis. No questions, no history, just the immediate problem in front of her. The base hospital rose from the flat Kansas landscape like a concrete promise. 5 stories of military efficiency painted in shades of beige that probably had official names like Desert Sand or Tactical Tan. Maya parked in the staff lot and headed for the emergency entrance, already mentally shifting gears. Whatever had happened at the range could wait. People needed help now. The trauma bay was controlled chaos. 2 gurneys, 3 patients, and a blur of blue scrubs moving with practiced precision. Dr. Vance stood at the center, a tall black woman in her 50s whose calm voice could cut through any emergency. Reeves, Bay 2, soldier, male, 23. Severe laceration to the left arm, possible radial nerve damage. Need an assessment. Maya dropped her bag in a locker and scrubbed in. The patient was conscious but pale, his right hand gripping the gurney rail hard enough to make his knuckles white. Young. Maybe on his second deployment. He looked at her with eyes that were trying very hard not to show fear. Hey! Maya pulled on gloves. I'm Maya. We're going to take care of you. What's your name? Specialist Dawson. Trevor. Okay, Trevor. I need to look at your arm. Going to hurt, but I'll be as gentle as I can. The laceration ran from elbow to wrist, deep enough to expose muscle. Clean edges, glass probably, from the vehicle accident. Maya worked quickly, checking for arterial damage, testing nerve response. Trevor hissed through his teeth, but didn't pull away. Good news, Maya said. Arteries intact. Nerve looks bruised but not severed. You're going to need surgery to close this properly, but you'll keep the arm. Trevor's exhale was shaky. Thank you, I thought. He didn't finish. You're going to be fine. Maya started an IV line for pain medication. Dr. Vance will get you prepped for the OR. Just breathe. The next 3 hours blurred together. 2 more patients from the accident, both stable. A training injury from the obstacle course. Dislocated shoulder. A private who'd developed an allergic reaction to the Chow Hall's new menu experiment. Maya moved through it all with the efficiency that came from years of practice. her hands sure, her mind focused. It wasn't until her shift ended, the sun dropping low and painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, that she let herself think about the range again. Foster wouldn't let it go. Men like him never did. He'd dig, ask questions, maybe even file a complaint. And if he dug deep enough, if he asked the right people, Maya locked her locker and headed for the parking lot. The evening air had cooled, carrying the smell of cut grass and diesel fuel. Her truck sat where she'd left it, but something made her slow down as she approached. A figure leaned against the driver's side door. Male. Dark suit instead of uniform. Early 50s, with gray threading through close-cropped hair and a face that had seen its share of long nights. Maya stopped 10 feet away. "Can I help you?" The man smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Ms. Reeves. Or should I say Sergeant Reeves?" Her stomach went cold. "You've got the wrong person." "I don't think so." He pushed off the truck, moving with the careful balance of someone who stayed in shape despite the desk job. "My name is Coleman, Defense Intelligence Agency. We need to talk." "I'm a contract nurse. Nothing to talk about." "You were a contract nurse. Before that, you were a lot of other things." Coleman pulled out a tablet, swiped through screens. "Army medic, 6 years, deployed to Afghanistan. Then something interesting happens. Your records get fuzzy. A transfer to a unit that doesn't officially exist. Training that isn't in any database I can access without a dozen clearances. And then, 3 years ago, you disappear. Medical discharge, PTSD, the whole 9 yards. Maya's jaw tightened. Ancient history. Except this afternoon, you shot like someone who never stopped training. Like someone who kept those skills very, very sharp. Coleman tucked the tablet away. "So here's my question. What's a ghost doing on a military base in the middle of Kansas?" "Living my life." "Are you?" He stepped closer, voice dropping. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're hiding. And the only people who hide that well are either running from something or waiting for something. I'm done with that world." "The world isn't done with you." Coleman pulled out a business card, held it between 2 fingers. "There's a situation developing, something that requires a very specific skill set. The kind you spent 3 years perfecting before you vanished." "Not interested." "You haven't heard what it is yet." "Don't need to." Maya stepped around him, reaching for her truck door. "I help people now. I save lives. That's it." Coleman didn't move. "What if I told you that people are going to die if you don't help? What if I told you that there's a threat inside this very base, and you might be the only one who can see it coming?" She paused, hand on the door handle. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" He placed the card on her hood. "Think about it. You know how to spot the wrong details. The things that don't fit. You were trained to see threats before they materialize. So ask yourself, have you noticed anything odd since you arrived? Anything that made your instincts prick up?" Maya wanted to say no, wanted to dismiss him and drive away and forget this conversation ever happened. But the truth was, she had noticed things. Small things. A supply shipment that arrived without proper documentation. 2 officers having a heated conversation in a hallway that went silent the moment she walked by. The way one of the security contractors always seemed to be somewhere he didn't need to be. She'd written it off, told herself she was being paranoid, that she was seeing patterns where none existed. What kind of threat? The question came out before she could stop it. Coleman smiled. A real one this time. The kind that starts with misdirection and ends with a body count. The kind you're uniquely qualified to stop. "I'm a nurse. You're a ghost. Death Angel. Unit 847. 47 confirmed eliminations in 3 years. And those are just the ones we know about." He paused. "And before all that, you were a medic who saved more lives than most doctors see in a career. You know how to heal and how to end threats. We need both." Maya felt something old and familiar stirring in her chest. The part of her that had thrived in the shadows, that had moved through hostile territory like smoke, that had made impossible shots and walked away clean. The part she'd tried to bury under scrubs and hospital shifts and the quiet routine of civilian life. "I can't." Her voice sounded hollow even to her own ears. "I left for a reason. And that reason was noble. Hell, I read your file. What they put you through, what they asked you to do, most people would have broken. But you didn't. You completed the mission, and then you had the strength to walk away. I respect that." Coleman picked up his card, held it out again. But walking away doesn't mean hiding. And right now there are people on this base who need the soldier you used to be, whether they know it or not. She took the card, didn't look at it, just held it between her fingers while the evening deepened around them. Think about it, Coleman said. You've got 24 hours. After that, I'm out of time, and this gets handled the messy way. He walked to a black sedan parked 3 spaces down, got in, and drove away without looking back. Maya stood next to her truck, the card in her hand feeling heavier than it should. Around her, the base settled into its evening routine. Soldiers heading to the mess hall, cars leaving the lot, the distant sound of a helicopter running pre-flight checks. Normal. Ordinary. Safe. Except it wasn't. If Coleman was right, if there really was a threat brewing, then every moment of normalcy was borrowed time. And Maya had lived long enough in that world to know how fast borrowed time ran out. She got in her truck and drove to the small apartment she rented in town. A 1-bedroom above a diner that served breakfast all day. The place smelled like coffee and bacon grease, the walls thin enough that she could hear the couple next door arguing about whose turn it was to do laundry. It was a far cry from forward operating bases and briefing rooms with walls that didn't officially exist. It was supposed to be peace. Maya dropped her bag by the door and stood in the middle of the living room, looking at the life she'd built. Furniture from a thrift store. Books on a shelf. A small TV that she hardly watched. Everything simple, everything clean, no complications, no ghosts, except the ghost was her, and she'd just been seen. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her thumb slide across the screen. Yeah, Ms. Reeves. Not Coleman. A different voice. Younger. Urgent. My name is Lieutenant Hayward. I'm the base security officer. I need you to come back to Fort Kearney immediately. Maya's grip tightened on the phone. What's wrong? There's been an incident. Multiple casualties. Dr. Vance requested you specifically. What kind of incident? A pause. Too long. I can't discuss it over an unsecured line. But ma'am, we need you here now. The call ended. Maya stared at the phone, her mind already running through possibilities. Multiple casualties. Unsecured line. The urgency in Hayward's voice wasn't the routine stress of a training accident. This was something else. She grabbed her bag and ran. The drive back to base took 18 minutes that felt like hours. Maya's mind raced through scenarios, each worse than the last. Explosion, active shooter, chemical exposure. The gate guards waved her through without the usual check, which told her everything she needed to know about how bad it was. The hospital parking lot was chaos. Ambulances, security vehicles, soldiers running in organized patterns that spoke to lockdown protocols. Maya parked sideways across 2 spaces and sprinted for the entrance. Dr. Vance met her in the hallway, still in scrubs but now splattered with blood. Reeves, thank God. We've got 8 incoming. Explosion in the motor pool. 3 critical. What do you need? Bay 4, shrapnel wounds. One of them's not going to make it without surgery in the next 10 minutes, and our surgeon's stuck in Bay 2 with a tension pneumothorax. Maya ran. Bay 4. The patient was already there, a sergeant whose name tape was too covered in blood to read. Young, maybe 25. His breathing was shallow, rapid, his abdomen distended. Internal bleeding. Bad. She grabbed the ultrasound. Get me a crash cart and prep him for emergency laparotomy. Now. The nurses moved. Maya's hands worked on autopilot, finding the bleeder, clamping, suturing. The patient's vitals dipped. Recovered. Dipped again. She forced herself to breathe, to focus, to remember that she'd done this before under worse conditions. In the back of a helicopter, in a field hospital under mortar fire, in a basement in Kandahar with a headlamp and a prayer. This was just another patient, just another life to save. 37 minutes later, the sergeant stabilized. Maya stepped back, let the surgical team take over for the formal repair. Her hands shook. Just a little, just enough that she had to shove them in her pockets. Dr. Vance appeared at her elbow. You saved him. Team effort. Don't. Vance's voice was sharp. I watched you work. That wasn't standard nursing. That was combat medicine. Where the hell did you learn to operate like that? Maya peeled off her gloves. Long time ago. Not that long if you haven't lost the touch. Vance studied her with the kind of attention that made Maya want to check her 6. We're going to talk about this later, but right now I need you in Bay 1. Another critical just arrived. The next 4 hours blurred. Maya moved from patient to patient, saving what could be saved, stabilizing what couldn't. By the time the last ambulance left and the hospital settled into an exhausted quiet, she'd lost count of how many lives had passed through her hands. She found a chair in the break room and collapsed into it. Her scrubs were ruined, her body ached, but everyone had lived, every single one. Lieutenant Hayward appeared in the doorway. Up close, he was younger than his voice suggested, maybe 30, with the kind of face that belonged to someone who took regulations seriously. "Ms. Reeves, can we talk?" "If you make it quick." He sat down across from her, pulled out a tablet. "The explosion in the motor pool. We've determined it wasn't an accident." Maya's exhaustion evaporated. "Someone planted a bomb? We're still investigating, but yes, that's the working theory." Hayward swiped through images. The device was crude but effective, timed to go off during the shift change when the maximum number of personnel would be in the area. Casualties could have been worse. They could have been catastrophic if not for a maintenance delay. Pure luck. He looked up. "But here's what's bothering me. Whoever did this knew the schedule, knew the layout, knew exactly where to place the device for maximum impact. Inside job. That's what I'm afraid of." Hayward set down the tablet. "I'm going to be blunt, Ms. Reeves. I ran your name after you arrived on base. Your military record is mostly redacted, pages and pages of black ink, but what I can see tells me you're not just a nurse. And after watching you work tonight, I'm certain of it." Maya said nothing. "I need help," Hayward continued. "Real help. The kind that doesn't come from protocol and procedure. There's someone on this base who wants people dead, and I don't know who I can trust, but Coleman vouched for you, said you were the best at finding threats that hide in plain sight. Coleman talks too much. He also said you'd try to turn this down." Hayward leaned forward. "Don't, please. 8 people almost died tonight. Next time, we might not be lucky." Maya stood, every muscle protesting. "I'm not what you need." "Yes, you are." He stood too. "You're exactly what we need. Someone who can see the angles. Someone who's not part of the system so they can't be compromised. Someone who—" The lights went out. Total darkness. Then emergency lighting kicked in, bathing everything in dim red. Somewhere in the building, an alarm started wailing. Hayward's radio crackled. "All units, we have a breach at the north perimeter. Repeat, breach at north perimeter. Security teams respond." He looked at Maya, and in the red light, his face was all sharp angles and shadows. "That's not a coincidence." "No," Maya agreed. "It's not. Because the explosion had been a test, a probe to see how the base would respond, where the security gaps were, how long it would take to lock down. And now, whoever was behind it was making their real move." Maya's hand went to her pocket, found Coleman's card. She looked at it for a long moment, then at Hayward, then at the red-lit hallway that stretched toward the emergency exit. She'd walked away from this life, buried it, tried to become someone else, but that someone else wouldn't be much use right now. The base needed Death Angel, the ghost, the soldier who'd operated in the spaces between official and sanctioned, who'd made the hard calls and lived with the consequences. The part of Maya she'd tried to kill was exactly what would keep people alive tonight. "Get me a weapon," she said, "and access to your security feeds, now." Hayward didn't ask questions, just nodded and started moving. Maya followed him into the red-lit darkness, feeling the old familiar weight of purpose settling over her shoulders like a coat she'd thought she'd thrown away. Her hands had stopped shaking, her exhaustion had burned off. Everything narrowed to mission parameters and threat assessment, and the cold, clear logic of survival. Somewhere on this base, someone thought they were operating in the shadows. They were about to learn that the shadows already had an occupant, and she'd been hiding there longer than they'd been alive. The hospital corridor stretched ahead like a throat. Maya moved through it with Hayward half a step behind, his radio spitting static and urgent voices. The breach at the north perimeter had pulled security away from the central buildings. Exactly what someone would do if they wanted to hit a secondary target without interference. "Where's your armory?" Maya asked. "East wing, 2 minutes." "Make it 1. They ran. The emergency lighting cast everything in crimson, turning familiar hallways into something from a nightmare. They passed nurses herding patients into interior rooms, doctors coordinating lockdown procedures, everyone moving with trained efficiency, but Maya could see the fear underneath. This wasn't a drill. The armory was a reinforced room behind two locked doors. Hayward swiped his card, punched in a code. Inside, racks of weapons stood in neat rows. M4 carbines, sidearms, riot gear, standard military security equipment. Maya reached for a Sig Sauer P32. Oh, checked the magazine, racked the slide. The weapon settled into her hand like it had never left. She grabbed 2 spare mags, then paused at a rifle case. "I need authorization for that," Hayward said. "Then give it to me." He hesitated for maybe 2 seconds before unlocking the case. Inside, an M110 semi-automatic sniper rifle rested in foam padding. Maya lifted it out, checked the scope, the action. Perfect condition. She slung it across her back along with a box of ammunition. Hayward stared. "Who are you really?" "Right now, I'm the person keeping this base from turning into a war zone." Maya headed for the door. "Your security feeds? Where can I access them?" "Command center, 3rd floor." "Show me." They took the stairs 3 at a time. The command center was a room full of monitors showing different angles of the base. Gates, buildings, roads, the motor pool with its blackened wreckage still smoldering. 2 security personnel sat at consoles, their faces tight with concentration. "Status?" Hayward barked. "Breach is contained, sir." Turned out to be a false alarm. Cut fence, but no actual intrusion. "That's not possible." Maya stepped up to the monitors. "Show me the north perimeter feed. Last 10 minutes. The technician pulled it up. Maya watched the timestamp, the empty field beyond the fence, the sudden appearance of a cut section. No figures, no movement. Rewind, slower. They watched again. And there, a glitch. Just a fraction of a second where the image seemed to stutter. Maya's jaw clenched. "The feed's been tampered with," she said. "Someone looped the footage. The breach is real, and whoever did it is already inside." Hayward went pale. "How do you know?" "Because that's what I would do." Maya scanned the other monitors, looking for anomalies. They create chaos at one point, loop the security feeds at another, then move while everyone's looking the wrong direction. Basic misdirection. But move where? That was the question. Maya studied the base layout in her mind. The motor pool explosion had been theater, destructive but not strategic. The breach was misdirection. So what was the real target? Her eyes fell on a monitor showing the admin building. 3 stories, mostly offices. And on the top floor, a conference room where... "When's the next command briefing?" Maya asked. Hayward checked his watch. 800 tomorrow, all senior staff. Why? "Because that's the target." She pointed at the monitor. "How many people?" 15, maybe 20. Base commander, all department heads, visiting brass from Washington. Maya felt the pieces clicking into place. The explosion to test response times, the breach to probe security, and tomorrow morning, when the base leadership gathered in one room, someone would strike. Assassination, mass casualty, maximum impact. "We need to evacuate that building," she said. "Now." "On what grounds?" "You're guessing." "I'm not." Maya pulled up the motor pool feed, zoomed in on the debris pattern. "Look at the blast radius. It's off-center. Whoever planted that device knew exactly how to make it look like they were trying to cause maximum casualties when really they were just making noise. This whole night has been a setup for tomorrow." Hayward studied the screen, his expression shifting from skepticism to horror. "If you're right, then we have less than 12 hours to find whoever's running this before they kill every senior officer on the base." The radio crackled again, different voice this time, older, authority in every syllable. "This is Colonel Brennan. All units stand down from heightened alert. Breach was a false alarm. Return to normal operations." Maya and Hayward locked eyes. She saw her own suspicion reflected back. "The Colonel's voice," Maya said quietly. "Has he been on the radio all night?" "No, he's at an off-base dinner, not due back until..." Hayward stopped. "That wasn't him." "No, it wasn't. Someone had just used the Colonel's authority to stand down security, to make the base vulnerable, to set the stage for tomorrow's attack. And if they had access to command communications, that meant the threat wasn't just inside the base, it was inside the chain of command itself." Maya's hand went to the radio on Hayward's belt before he could react. She keyed the mic, her voice sharp and clear. "All security teams disregard last transmission. Maintain heightened alert status. This is not a drill. Static answered her. Then a different voice, clipped and irritated. Who is this? Identify yourself. Hayward grabbed the radio back. Lieutenant Hayward, base security. We have reason to believe the stand-down order was the transmission cut off. Every monitor in the command center flickered once, twice, then went black. One of the technicians swore and started hammering at his keyboard. We're locked out. Someone's running a remote override. Maya moved to the window. 3 stories down, the base had taken on an eerie quiet. The emergency lighting still bathed everything in red, but the usual hum of activity had stilled. Soldiers stood in small clusters looking confused, waiting for orders that weren't coming. How many people know the command override codes? She asked. Hayward's face had gone pale. 3. Colonel Brennan, Major Vickers, and Captain Torres. Where are they right now? Brennan's off base. Vickers is at the motor pool coordinating the investigation. Torres... He stopped. Torres is in the hospital, 4th floor, private room. He was injured in the explosion. Maya turned from the window. Show me. They ran again, this time up instead of down. The 4th floor was quieter than the chaos below, most of the rooms dark and empty. Private room meant VIP treatment, which meant the far end of the corridor where the suites were. Hayward led her there, past 2 MPs who snapped to attention when they saw him. Sir, one of them said. Captain Torres gave orders not to be disturbed. I'm disturbing him. Hayward pushed past. The door opened onto a hospital suite that was nicer than Maya's entire apartment. Private bathroom, sitting area. A bed where Captain Torres lay with his left leg elevated and bandaged. He was maybe 40, with the kind of physique that spoke to regular PT and a face that belonged on recruiting posters. When he saw them, his expression cycled through surprise, confusion, then something that might have been calculation. Lieutenant, he said, what's going on? The command override, Hayward said. Someone just used it to stand down base security. Was it you? Torres sat up straighter. What? No, I've been stuck in this bed for the last 3 hours. You have your phone? Of course. Give it to me. Something flickered across Torres's face, too fast to name, but Maya caught it. He reached for the nightstand, handed over his phone. Hayward checked the recent activity, his jaw tightening with each swipe. You called the command center 20 minutes ago, he said. Same time as the override. I was checking on the situation. That's my job. And you didn't think it was strange that someone issued a stand-down order in the middle of an active threat? Torres's expression hardened. I didn't issue any orders. I called to get a status update. That's it. Maya stepped forward, her eyes on Torres's face, watching for the tells, the micro-expressions that gave people away when they were working an angle. She'd interrogated enemy combatants in 4 countries and 3 languages. She knew what guilt looked like. What she saw on Torres wasn't guilt, it was fear. Who called you first? She asked quietly. Torres blinked. What? Before you called the command center, someone contacted you, told you what to say, what to ask. Who was it? I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. Maya moved closer, her voice dropping to just above a whisper. Because you're not running this. You're being used. Someone has leverage on you, and they're making you play a part in whatever's happening. So I'll ask again. Who called you? The captain's hands clenched on the bedsheets. For a long moment, the only sound was the beep of medical equipment and the distant wail of alarms from somewhere else in the building. Then Torres's shoulders sagged. I don't know his name, he said. He called from a blocked number 3 days ago. Said he had information about my daughter. Hayward straightened. Your daughter's in college, California, right? She is. But 2 weeks ago, she missed our regular call. I tried reaching her, got nothing. Then this voice calls and tells me she's safe. For now. Says if I want her to stay that way, I'll do exactly what he tells me when the time comes. Maya felt something cold settle in her chest. This wasn't just an inside job. It was coordinated, planned. Someone had identified the key personnel, found their pressure points, and squeezed. Torres wasn't a traitor. He was a father trying to keep his daughter alive. What did he tell you to do? Hayward asked. Call the command center at exactly 21:47 hours. Ask about the breach status. When they confirmed it was contained, I was supposed to suggest standing down to normal operations. Make it sound natural. Torres looked at his hands. That's all, I swear. I didn't know about the override. But you gave them the opening, Maya said. Not accusatory, just fact. Someone at the command center heard you suggest the stand down and took it as a signal to execute. Torres closed his eyes. They have my daughter. Then we get her back. Maya turned to Hayward. I need a phone, secured line, and I need Coleman here now. Hayward pulled out his cell, made the call. 3 minutes later, Coleman's voice crackled through on speaker. Tell me you've got something. Maya laid out what they'd found in clipped, efficient sentences. The looped security feeds. The false stand-down. Torres and his daughter. When she finished, Coleman was quiet for a beat. This is bigger than we thought, he said finally. If they're willing to kidnap family members to get compliance, we're looking at a sophisticated operation. Military-level planning. Or someone who used to be military, Maya said. The timing's too precise. They know base operations inside and out. I'm 20 minutes out. Don't do anything stupid until I get there. The line went dead. Maya looked at Torres, who'd gone the color of old snow. When's your next check-in? What? Whoever has your daughter, they'll want to confirm you did your part. When are they supposed to contact you? Torres checked his watch. 30 minutes? He said he'd call to confirm the stand-down went through. Good. When he does, you're going to keep him talking. Get anything you can, background noise, accent, word choice, anything that might help us locate him. And if I can't? If he realizes something's wrong? Maya's expression didn't change. Then we find another way. But your daughter's best chance is that phone call, so you're going to sell it like your life depends on it, because hers does. She walked out before Torres could respond. Hayward followed, closing the door behind them. In the hallway, away from the MPs, he grabbed her arm. You can't promise we'll get his daughter back, he said. You don't even know where she is. No. But he needs to believe we can, or he'll fall apart. Maya pulled free. And we need him functional. That's cold. That's reality. She started walking. Right now we've got multiple hostile actors on base, a compromised command structure, and less than 12 hours before they execute whatever they're really planning. I don't have time for gentle. I need results. They made it back to the command center to find the technicians still fighting with the locked-out systems. One of them looked up as they entered. We're back online, but it's fragile. Whoever did this knew what they were doing. They could shut us down again whenever they want. Maya studied the monitors, now showing live feeds again. The base had returned to something like normal operation, soldiers moving with the cautious efficiency of people who knew something was wrong but didn't know what. She scanned each screen, looking for patterns. Anomalies. There. Building 6. A figure in maintenance coveralls moving through a service entrance that should have been locked during heightened alert. The person kept their head down, face obscured by the brim of a cap. But the gate was wrong, too measured, too aware. Who has access to Building 6 right now? Maya asked. The technician checked his logs. Maintenance crew, 3 people, all accounted for in the motor pool doing cleanup. Then who's that? She pointed at the screen. Hayward leaned in. Son of a, that's the admin building, where the briefing's scheduled. Maya was already moving. Get security there now, and pull every camera angle you've got on that entrance for the last hour. She hit the stairs at a run, Hayward on her heels. The admin building was a 2-minute sprint across open ground. No time for subtlety, no time for protocol. Just speed and surprise and the cold certainty that whoever was in that building wasn't there to fix the plumbing. The main entrance was locked, but Maya's borrowed credentials from Hayward opened it. Inside, the building was dark except for emergency lighting. Their footsteps echoed on tile as they moved through the lobby toward the service stairs. Maya had the SIG out, low and ready. Hayward had drawn his own sidearm, his breathing controlled but fast. 3rd floor. The conference room was at the far end of a hallway lined with offices. Maya moved along the wall, using the doorways for cover. No sound ahead, no movement, just the red glow of emergency lights and the faint hum of the building's ventilation. She reached the conference room door and tested the handle. Locked. She looked at Hayward, who mouthed the word override. He swiped his card. The lock clicked. Maya pushed the door open fast and low, sweeping the room with her weapon. Empty. Chairs arranged around a long table. Whiteboard on one wall. Windows overlooking the parade ground. Nothing out of place. Except the ceiling panel directly above the head of the table was slightly askew. Maya holstered the SIG and grabbed a chair, climbed up, pushed the panel aside. In the crawl space above, nestled against a support beam, sat a package wrapped in black plastic. Wires. A digital timer showing 7 hours, 32 minutes, and 18 seconds. 7 hours and counting. "Hayward," she said quietly, "call EOD. We've got an IED." He was already on the radio. Maya stayed on the chair, studying the device without touching it. The construction was clean, professional. Whoever built this knew explosives. The timer was commercial grade, the wiring neat. No anti-tamper switches that she could see, but that didn't mean they weren't there. She climbed down as the first EOD tech arrived, a staff sergeant named Ruiz, who took one look at the ceiling and whistled low. "That's a big one," he said. "Maybe 10 pounds of C4, enough to bring down this whole floor." "Can you disarm it?" "Not safely. Not here." Ruiz was already setting up his equipment. "Best bet is to evacuate the building and remove it to a controlled detonation site, but I need to scan it first, make sure there's no secondary triggers." Maya stepped back, let him work. Hayward was on his radio, coordinating the evacuation. Within minutes, the building was empty except for them and Ruiz's team. Maya watched from the doorway as they carefully extracted the device, every movement precise and unhurried. Her phone buzzed. "Coleman." She answered. "Yeah. I'm at the gate, coming to you. What's the situation?" "We found the device, conference room. EOD's removing it now." "Only one?" Maya felt her stomach drop. "What do you mean, only one?" "If this is as sophisticated as you're saying, they wouldn't put all their eggs in one basket. They'd have redundancy, backups." Coleman's voice was tight. "Check the other potential targets, anywhere senior staff might gather." Maya turned to Hayward. "Where else would the command staff be tomorrow besides the briefing?" "The mess hall. They usually have breakfast there before meetings." "Oh, 700. We need to check it. Now." They ran again, this time toward the officers' mess on the other side of the base. The building was locked for the night, but Hayward's card opened it. Inside, industrial kitchens and a dining area that could seat 200. Maya moved through it systematically, checking under tables, inside cabinets, behind equipment. Nothing. She was about to call it clear when something made her pause. A smell, faint, chemical, coming from the direction of the kitchen. She followed it to a walk-in freezer, pulled open the heavy door. Cold air rushed out, and there in the back, hidden behind boxes of frozen supplies, was another package. Same black plastic, same digital timer. This one showing 6:47:53, 15 minutes earlier than the conference room device. "They were going to hit breakfast first," Maya said. "Kill whoever showed up early, then get the rest at the briefing." Hayward's face had gone gray. "How many more are there?" "I don't know, but we need to sweep every building where command staff might be." She pulled out her phone, called Coleman. "We've got a second device. Officer's mess. How fast can you get me a full security sweep of the base?" "With what personnel?" "Half your security force is at the motor pool and the other half is spread across perimeter watch. You don't have the manpower for a comprehensive sweep in the time we've got left." Maya's mind raced. 6 hours until the device is detonated. Hundreds of buildings on base. Limited personnel. They couldn't check everything, which meant they had to think like the enemy. Anticipate the targets. "They're going after the command structure," she said. "Taking out leadership. So where else would they put devices? What other targets matter?" Coleman was quiet for a moment. "The communications center. If they take that out along with the command staff, the base goes dark. Can't call for help, can't coordinate a response." "Where is it?" Hayward answered. "Building 12, basement level, reinforced concrete. That's why it's the comms hub. It's the most secure structure on base." "Show me." Building 12 sat at the heart of Fort Kearney, a squat structure that looked more like a bunker than an office building. The entrance required 2 separate credentials, and the stairwell leading down was narrow and windowless. At the bottom, a heavy door with a cipher lock blocked access. Hayward punched in the code. The door opened onto a room full of equipment racks and server banks, the air cold from industrial cooling. 2 technicians looked up from their stations, startled. "Sir," one of them said, "we're in the middle of diagnostics. The system crashed earlier." "Clear out," Maya said. "Right now." They started to protest, but something in her voice made them move. As soon as they were gone, Maya began the search. This space was different. Everything built into walls, cables running through conduits, equipment bolted to racks. Harder to hide something, but not impossible. She found it 20 minutes later, tucked inside a server rack behind a false panel, smaller than the others, more sophisticated. The timer read 6:15:08, and there was something else, a wireless receiver attached to the detonator. This one's remote triggered, she said. They can set it off whenever they want, regardless of the timer. Hayward stared at the device. So all of this, the timed explosives, it's misdirection again. The real threat is this one because they control when it goes off. No. Maya studied the wiring, the components. The real threat is that we don't know how many more there are or where they're hidden. We found 3. How many did we miss? The question hung in the cold air of the communications center. Ruiz and his team arrived to extract the 3rd device, moving with the same careful precision. Maya stood back, her mind working through the problem from every angle. 3 devices, different locations, different timers, 1 remote triggered. The pattern suggested a coordinated strike designed to maximize confusion and casualties. Take out the leadership at breakfast, hit the stragglers at the briefing, cut communications to prevent response. Classic decapitation strategy, but something didn't fit. The remote trigger suggested adaptability, the ability to respond to changing circumstances, which meant whoever was running this operation was still on base, still watching, still waiting for the right moment. Coleman arrived as they were securing the 3rd device. He looked like he'd driven hard and fast, his suit rumpled and his expression grim. He took in the scene, listened to Maya's briefing, then pulled her aside. "I've got news," he said. "We located Torres's daughter. She's alive, being held at an abandoned farm 40 miles northeast of here. Local PD is coordinating a rescue." "How'd you find her?" "We traced the calls to Torres's phone. Took some time, but we got lucky with a cell tower ping." Coleman paused. "But here's the thing. The farm is owned by a shell company, and when we dug into that company's records, we found something interesting. It was incorporated 3 years ago by a former Army officer, named Marcus Webb." The name hit Maya like a fist. She kept her expression neutral, but inside, pieces were falling into place with a weight that made her chest tight. "Webb," she said, "he was Rangers. Did 2 tours in Afghanistan. I crossed paths with him once. He washed out after a friendly fire incident that wasn't so friendly." "You knew him?" "Not well, but I knew his reputation. Smart, ruthless, had a problem with authority, especially after they tried to court-martial him for excessive force." Maya's jaw clenched. "They gave him a dishonorable discharge instead. Last I heard, he'd disappeared." "Well, he's back, and he's got a serious grudge against the military establishment." Coleman pulled out his tablet, showed her a file. "We think he's been recruiting, building a team of disaffected veterans, all of them with skills and all of them with reasons to want payback." Maya scanned the file. Names, service records, every single one dishonorably discharged or forced out under questionable circumstances. Every single one with specialized training in combat, explosives, or intelligence. A team built to hurt the institution that had rejected them. "How many?" she asked. "At least 8 that we've identified. Could be more." "And they're all here? On base?" "We think so. Spread out, embedded in different roles, maintenance, contractors, maybe even active duty under false identities." Coleman's expression was grim. "Webb's been planning this for years. Tonight's just the execution." Maya handed back the tablet. "What's the end game? He takes out the command staff, then what? The base doesn't fall apart. They'll just bring in replacements. It's not about taking over, it's about making a statement, showing that the military is vulnerable, that all the security and protocol and chain of command means nothing if the right person gets inside." Coleman met her eyes. "He's trying to prove that the people the Army threw away are better than the ones they kept." The psychology made sense. Webb wasn't after strategic victory. He wanted vindication, wanted to show that he'd been wronged, wanted the institution that had discarded him to bleed. Maya's phone buzzed. Text from Hayward. "Torres got the call, keeping him talking." She showed Coleman. "We need to get up there." They took the stairs 2 at a time back to the hospital. Torres's room was crowded now. Hayward, 2 techs with recording equipment, and Torres himself on the phone, his face slick with sweat. "I understand," he was saying. "Everything went according to plan. Security stood down. No complications. A voice on speaker, distorted by a modulator. You did well, Captain. Your daughter will be released once this is over. When? When will I know she's safe? Soon. Be patient. Torres's hand shook. I need proof she's okay. Let me talk to her. Silence on the other end. Then, that wasn't part of our agreement. Please, just for a second, I need to know. The line went dead. Torres stared at the phone, then looked up at Maya with eyes that were hollow. I lost him. No, one of the techs said. We got a partial trace. Signal bounced through 3 relays, but the origin point was on base. Building 19. Hayward pulled up a map on his tablet. That's warehousing, mostly storage for equipment and supplies. Supposed to be empty this time of night. Maya was already moving. Coleman caught her arm. Wait. If Webb's there, he's not alone. You go in hot, people die. People are going to die anyway if we don't stop this. She pulled free. I'm not asking for permission. I know. That's why I'm coming with you. They geared up fast. Body armor, comms, extra ammunition. Hayward assembled a 4-person security team, all of them veterans of deployment rotations. Young but experienced. Scared but ready. Building 19 sat at the edge of the base, a massive structure of corrugated metal and concrete. 3 loading bays on one side, a single personnel entrance on the other. Minimal lighting, lots of shadows. Perfect for hiding or for setting up an ambush. Maya took point, moving along the perimeter with Coleman behind her and the security team spreading to cover the exits. The personnel door was locked, but she'd expected that. She signaled to one of the soldiers, who came forward with a breaching tool. On 3, she mouthed. 1, 2, 3. The door blew inward with a crash that echoed through the night. Maya went through the opening in a crouch, sweeping left while Coleman swept right. Inside was darkness cut by thin shafts of moonlight through high windows. Rows of storage racks created a maze of corridors and dead ends. She moved forward, every sense heightened. Her breathing was controlled, her footfalls silent. Somewhere in this building was a man who'd spent 3 years planning revenge. A man who'd recruited a team, kidnapped civilians, and planted enough explosives to kill dozens. A man who was about to learn that the ghost he'd heard stories about was real. Movement to her right. Maya spun, weapon up. A figure in tactical gear stepped out from behind a rack, rifle raised. She fired twice, center mass, and the figure went down without a sound. Shouts erupted from deeper in the building. Muzzle flashes lit up the darkness. The security team returned fire, the sound deafening in the enclosed space. Maya pressed forward, using the racks for cover. Another hostile appeared. She put him down, then another. Coleman's voice in her ear. Multiple contacts, east side, I'm pinned. Maya changed direction, moving toward his position. She found him behind a forklift, trading shots with 2 shooters positioned in elevated positions. She took out the first one with a shot that probably would have made her old instructors proud. The second ducked back before she could get a clean angle. Move, she told Coleman. I'll cover. He ran while she laid down suppressing fire. The second shooter returned fire, rounds sparking off metal around her. Maya counted the shots. 7, 8, 9. Most rifles held 30 rounds. Either he was running low or he was disciplined enough not to spray and pray. She waited for the pause when he'd reload. There. A 2-second gap. She broke cover, crossed the open space, and came up on his flank. He was turning when she fired. 3 shots. He dropped. The gunfire stopped. Sudden silence that was somehow worse than the noise. Maya's ears rang, her pulse hammered, but her hands were steady. Hayward's voice on comms. We've got the perimeter secure, no one's getting out. How many hostiles down? Maya asked. 4 confirmed, possibly more, which meant Webb was still unaccounted for, along with however many team members he'd brought. Maya reloaded, her eyes scanning the shadows. This building was huge, 50,000 square feet at least, plenty of room to hide or maneuver. She moved deeper, past the storage racks toward what looked like an office area at the far end. The door was ajar, light spilling out. She approached from the side, listening. Voices inside. 2, maybe 3 people. She risked a glance through the gap. An office converted into a command post. Monitors showing security feeds, maps of the base on the walls. And standing at the center, studying a tablet, was a man she recognized even though it had been years. Marcus Webb. Taller than she remembered, thinner, his face carved into harder lines by time and whatever demons he'd been carrying. He wore civilian clothes but moved like military, every gesture precise and economical. He wasn't alone. Two others with him, a woman checking weapons and a younger man at the monitors, both armed, both alert. Maya keyed her comms. I've got eyes on Webb, Building 19, northeast corner office. 2 additional hostiles, approaching now. Coleman, wait for backup. But Maya was already pushing the door open, her weapon trained on Webb's center mass. Don't move. The room froze. The woman reached for her sidearm. Maya shifted her aim. Don't. Webb turned slowly, his hands away from his body. When he saw her face, something flickered across his expression. Recognition. Then something that might have been respect. Death Angel, he said. I wondered if they'd bring you in. Drop the tablet. Hands where I can see them. He complied, setting the tablet on the desk. You know this is bigger than just me, right? Taking me down doesn't stop what's coming. The bombs are already found. Your team's dead or captured. It's over, Webb. Is it? He smiled, but there was no warmth in it. You found 3 devices. Congratulations. How many more do you think are out there? Maya's finger tightened on the trigger. Tell me where they are. Why would I do that? The whole point is to watch this corrupt system burn, to prove that all their security and all their protocols mean nothing when the people they discarded decide to push back. This isn't justice, it's murder, says the woman with 47 confirmed kills. Webb's eyes were cold. Don't pretend you're better than me. We both did terrible things for people who threw us away when we stopped being useful. I left. You came back to kill. I came back to make them see, to show every soldier who's been chewed up and spit out by this machine that we're not helpless, that we can fight back. He took a step forward. You of all people should understand that. Maya didn't lower her weapon. Last chance. Where are the other bombs? Webb's smile widened. You're assuming there are others. Maybe there aren't. Maybe I'm bluffing to keep you off balance, or maybe... His hand moved faster than she expected, toward something on his belt. Maya fired. The shot caught him in the shoulder, spinning him around. The woman lunged for her weapon. Maya put 2 rounds in her chest. The younger man at the monitors raised his hands, face white with terror. Don't shoot, he stammered. Don't shoot. I'll tell you everything. Webb collapsed against the desk, clutching his shoulder. Blood seeped through his fingers. He looked at Maya with eyes that held pain and something that might have been admiration. You're as good as they said, he gasped. Coleman burst through the door, weapon up, the security team behind him. He took in the scene, 2 down, 1 wounded, 1 surrendering, and lowered his gun. Clear, he said into his radio. Then to Maya. You okay? She nodded, not trusting her voice. The adrenaline was starting to fade, leaving behind the familiar hollow feeling that came after action. She'd killed 2 people in the last 30 seconds. It should have felt worse than it did. That it didn't was its own kind of terrible. The young man at the monitors was talking, words tumbling out in a panic. There's 2 more devices, one in the barracks, Building 7, the other in the vehicle depot. They're both set for 0600. I can show you exactly where... Show us, Coleman said, grabbing him by the arm. Hayward was already on the radio, dispatching EOD to both locations. Medics rushed in for Webb, who was loaded onto a gurney, still conscious and still smiling that cold, empty smile. This doesn't end here, he said as they wheeled him past Maya. There are more like me. You people broke, and then discarded. And they're all watching to see what happens next. Maya didn't respond, just watched him disappear into the night, surrounded by MPs and medics and the machinery of military justice grinding into motion. Coleman touched her elbow. We need your statement, and the brass is going to want to talk to you. Later. Maya. I said later. She holstered her weapon. Right now, I need to make sure there aren't any more surprises waiting to go off. She walked out of the building into air that felt too thin and a sky that was just starting to lighten with pre-dawn gray. Around her, the base was coming alive, soldiers mobilizing, security teams sweeping buildings, EOD working on the 2 new devices. The chaos of crisis management in full swing. And somewhere in that chaos, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that Webb had been telling the truth, that this wasn't the end, that they'd stopped his plan, but not the idea behind it, that there were others out there, angry and skilled and looking for a way to make the system that had failed them pay. Her phone buzzed. Hayward. Torres's daughter is safe. Local PD got her. She's shaken but unharmed. One piece of good news, at least. Maya allowed herself a moment of relief before heading back to the hospital. She needed to see Torres, needed to tell him his daughter was alive, needed to watch the weight lift from his shoulders. She found him in his room, staring at the ceiling with the hollow expression of someone who'd been carrying too much for too long. When he saw her, he sat up. Well? She's safe. They're bringing her to the base hospital for a checkup, but she's okay. Torres's face crumpled. He covered it with his hands, shoulders shaking. Maya stood there, not sure what to do or say. She'd never been good at this part. The aftermath, the emotions. She could shoot straight and think fast and move through hostile territory like smoke, but standing in front of a broken man who'd just gotten his daughter back, that was harder than any firefight. Thank you, he managed. I can't, thank you. You did your part. Kept him talking long enough for us to get a trace. I almost got people killed. But you didn't, and when it mattered, you made the right choice. Maya moved toward the door. Your daughter's going to need you. Be there for her. She left before he could say anything else. Outside, the hospital was settling back into its normal rhythm. The injured from the motor pool explosion were stable. The emergency had passed. Life on base would return to normal, or whatever passed for normal after a night like this. Maya made it to her truck as the sun broke the horizon, painting the Kansas sky in shades of gold and pink. Beautiful, peaceful, like the violence of the last 12 hours had never happened. Her hands were shaking now, the delayed reaction, the price of running on adrenaline for too long. She gripped the steering wheel until they steadied, then just sat there, watching the sunrise and trying to remember who she was supposed to be. A nurse. That's what she'd told herself. That's what she'd tried to become. Someone who saved lives instead of taking them. Someone who could leave the shadows behind and live in the light. But tonight had proven what she'd always suspected, that you couldn't bury the past, that training and instinct and the things that made you good at killing didn't just disappear because you wanted them to. They waited, patient and ready. And when the moment came, they took over like you'd never left. Her phone rang. Coleman. Don't tell me there's another bomb, she said. No, but we've got a problem. The brass wants to debrief you, Colonel Brennan specifically, and he's bringing someone from Washington, someone who's very interested in how a contract nurse managed to stop a sophisticated terror plot in 12 hours. Maya closed her eyes. When? 1 hour. Conference room, the one without the bomb. Funny. I thought so. Coleman paused. For what it's worth, you saved a lot of lives tonight. Whatever happens next, remember that. The line went dead. Maya sat in her truck, watching soldiers stream toward the mess hall for breakfast that would actually happen instead of turning into a massacre. Watching the base wake up to a day that could have been its last. And somewhere in the back of her mind, Webb's words echoed. This doesn't end here. Because he was right. She'd stopped his plan, saved the base, kept people alive, but the anger that had driven him, the sense of betrayal and injustice that had turned a decorated soldier into a terrorist, that didn't die with his arrest. It was out there, in every veteran who felt discarded, every soldier who'd been chewed up by the system and spit out broken. Maya had been one of them once, had felt that same rage, that same desire to make them pay. The only difference was she'd found another way to channel it, had turned it inward instead of outward, had tried to heal instead of hurt. But looking at what she'd done tonight, the bodies left behind, the blood on her hands, even if it was justified, she wondered if the difference was as clear as she'd wanted to believe. Her phone buzzed again, a text from an unknown number. You can't save them all, Angel. Some of us are already too far gone. Maya stared at the message. Not Webb. He was in custody. Someone else. Someone who'd been watching. Someone who knew who she was and what she'd done and was sending a message of their own. The screen went dark, but the words stayed burned in her mind as she started the truck and headed toward a meeting that would decide whether she remained Maya Reeves, contract nurse, or became something else entirely. The The conference room still smelled faintly of the EOD team's chemical sensors, despite the windows being thrown open to air it out. Maya sat at the far end of the table, her back to the wall the way she always positioned herself, and watched three men in uniforms that carried more stars and ribbons than she'd seen in one place outside of a promotion ceremony file, and like they owned the oxygen. Colonel Brennan entered first, 58, silver haircut, military precise, face lined from decades of making decisions that sent people into harm's way. Behind him came a two-star general whose name tape read Carson, and bringing up the rear was a civilian in an expensive suit who moved with the kind of quiet authority that came from acronym agencies nobody talked about in public. Coleman stood by the door, his expression carefully neutral. Hayward sat 2 chairs down from Maya, looking like he hadn't slept. He probably hadn't. Brennan took the head of the table. Ms. Reeves, or should I say Sergeant Reeves, or perhaps we should use your operational designation, 847, Death Angel. Maya kept her voice level. Maya works fine. I'm sure it does. Brennan opened a folder that probably contained her life in black ink and redacted sections. Let's skip the pleasantries. You're a ghost. Officially discharged 3 years ago with full disability for PTSD. But your actual service record is classified at levels that required me to get clearance from Washington just to read the summary. What I can see tells me you were part of a unit that doesn't exist, doing operations that never happened, in places we were never officially present. If it never happened, why are we talking about it? General Carson leaned forward. Because last night you killed 2 people, wounded another, and dismantled a domestic terror operation using skills that a contract nurse shouldn't possess. That raises questions. I stopped people from dying. I thought that was the goal. The goal, the civilian said, speaking for the first time, is maintaining operational security. I'm Director Pierce, DOD Oversight, and right now you're a walking security breach. Everything you did last night, the shooting, the tactical decisions, the way you moved through a hostile environment that exposes tradecraft that's supposed to stay buried. Maya met his eyes. Then maybe you shouldn't have let Webb and his team get this far. They were all former military, all dishonorably discharged, all carrying grudges. Someone should have been watching them. We were, Pierce said. Webb's been on a watch list for 18 months, but he went quiet, dropped off the grid. We thought he'd given up, found some other way to deal with his issues. You thought wrong. Clearly. Pierce's jaw tightened. Which brings us to the current situation. We have a dead terrorist cell, a compromised base security structure, and a nurse who shoots like a Tier 1 operator. The media is already sniffing around. We need to control the narrative before this becomes a circus. Brennan cut in. What Director Pierce is trying to say is that we need you to disappear again. Go back to being Maya Reeves, contract nurse. We'll handle the official reports. Your name stays out of it. The security team gets credit for stopping the attack. And the truth gets classified. Brennan closed the folder. It's for your protection as much as ours. If word gets out that Death Angel is alive and working at Fort Kearney, you become a target. Every extremist group, every hostile intelligence service, every journalist looking for a story, they'll come after you. Is that what you want? Maya looked at her hands, still steady despite the lack of sleep, despite the adrenaline crash that had hit her on the drive over, despite everything. What I want is to know how many more are out there. Webb said this doesn't end with him. He implied there are others. There are always others, Carson said. Disaffected veterans, people with skills and grudges. We monitor what we can, intervene when possible, but we can't stop everyone. You could if you fix the system that creates them. The room went quiet. Pierce's expression hardened. That's above your pay grade, Ms. Reeves. I don't have a pay grade. I'm a contractor, remember? Which means I can say what you can't. Maya leaned forward. Webb didn't wake up one day and decide to blow up a base. He was pushed, discarded, thrown away by the same institution he'd bled for. You don't fix that by classifying the aftermath. You fix it by acknowledging the problem. Brennan's face was unreadable. You're not wrong, but you're also not in a position to change policy. Right now, we need to know if you're going to cooperate with the cover story or if this is going to become complicated. Maya stood. I'll cooperate, but I'm done hiding. If you want me to go back to being just a nurse, fine, but I'm not disappearing. I'm not leaving Fort Kearney. And if another situation develops, I'm not going to sit on my hands because it might expose tradecraft. That's not how this works, Pierce said. Then change how it works. Maya headed for the door. Or find someone else to clean up your messes. She was halfway down the hallway when Coleman caught up. That went well. They wanted me to vanish. I said no. I heard. The whole floor probably heard. He matched her pace. You realize you just told a general and a DOD director how to fix their broken system, or you'll keep operating independently. That's not going to make you friends. I'm not looking for friends. Coleman grabbed her arm, stopped her. What are you looking for, Maya? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're trying to get yourself killed. You can't fight the whole military establishment. They'll grind you down and bury what's left. Maybe, she pulled free. But at least I'll go down fighting instead of hiding. That's not brave. That's suicidal. Maya met his eyes. 3 years ago, I walked away because I was tired of being a weapon, tired of the missions and the kills, and the weight of carrying secrets that ate at me from the inside. I thought if I could just be normal, just save lives instead of taking them, I could find some kind of peace. But last night proved something I should have already known. I can't be normal. The training doesn't fade. The instincts don't disappear. And when people need help, I can't stand by just because it might complicate someone's career or expose classified operations. Jati Asuoki, Timsat. Coleman was quiet for a moment. So what's the plan? Keep working as a nurse and moonlight as a vigilante? I don't know, but I'm not running anymore. She left him in the hallway and headed for the parking lot. The sun was fully up now, the Kansas heat already building toward another scorcher. Soldiers moved across the base with the practiced efficiency of people who'd learned to function on minimal sleep and maximum coffee. Life continued, crisis or no crisis. Maya's phone buzzed. A text from Dr. Vance. My office. Now. The hospital director's office was on the second floor, a small space made smaller by filing cabinets and stacks of medical journals. Vance sat behind her desk, still wearing yesterday's scrubs, her eyes shadowed with exhaustion. Close the door, she said. Maya did. I'm going to ask you a question, and I want the truth. Not the sanitized version, not the cover story. The truth. Vance folded her hands on the desk. Who the hell are you really? Maya sat. You read my file when I was hired. I read what they wanted me to read. Army medic, medical discharge, exemplary service record. But that file doesn't explain how you performed a field laparotomy last night with the precision of a combat surgeon. It doesn't explain how you moved through that motor pool explosion like you'd seen 100 worse. And it definitely doesn't explain the rumors I'm hearing about you being involved in stopping a terrorist attack. The rumors are exaggerated, are they? Vance leaned back. Because I've been doing this for 30 years. I've worked with combat medics, flight surgeons, special operations medical staff, the best the military has to offer. And you're better than all of them. You don't hesitate. You don't second guess. You just act like you've been doing this your whole life in places where mistakes mean people die. Maya said nothing. I'm not going to turn you in or report you or whatever you're worried about, Vance continued. But I need to know if having you on my staff is going to bring trouble. Because I've got patients who depend on this hospital, and I can't have them caught in the crossfire of whatever you're running from. I'm not running from anything, not anymore. Then what are you doing here? Maya met her eyes. Trying to make up for the things I can't take back. Every life I save helps balance the ledger. Or at least that's what I tell myself. Vance studied her for a long moment. How many? Does it matter? It does if it's affecting your ability to do this job. It's not. Maya stood. I'm good at what I do. You said it yourself, and right now this hospital needs people who are good. So unless you're firing me, I've got a shift to prep for. Sit down. The command in Vance's voice made Maya pause. She sat. I'm not firing you, Vance said, but I'm putting you on administrative leave. 48 hours? Mandatory. You've been involved in a critical incident, you haven't slept, and you're running on fumes and whatever emotional armor you've built up over the years. That's a recipe for mistakes. So you're going home, you're going to sleep, and you're not coming back until you're actually rested. Understood? I'm fine. You're not. And the fact that you think you are tells me exactly how not fine you are. Vance's expression softened slightly. Look, I don't know what you did before you came here. I don't know what you've seen or what you've done, but I know trauma when I see it, and you're carrying enough to sink a ship. So take the time. Process what happened last night. And when you come back, we'll talk about whether this is still the right fit. Maya wanted to argue, wanted to insist she was fine and didn't need rest and could handle whatever came next. But the truth was, her hands were starting to shake again. Her vision was getting soft around the edges, and the adrenaline that had carried her through the last 12 hours was completely gone. 48 hours, she said, starting now. Maya left the office and headed for her truck. The drive back to her apartment felt longer than it should have, every mile stretching as exhaustion caught up. She made it inside, locked the door, and collapsed on the couch without bothering to change out of her scrubs. Sleep should have come easy. Her body needed it. Her mind needed it. But every time she closed her eyes, she saw Webb's face. Saw the 2 people she'd killed in the warehouse. Saw the bomb timer counting down. Saw Torres's daughter being held in some farmhouse while her father sold out his principles to keep her alive. She gave up trying to sleep around noon and instead pulled out her laptop. Started searching. Webb's name brought up old news articles about his discharge, his court-martial that got reduced to administrative separation, his disappearance from public record. But there was more if you knew where to look. Message boards, veterans forums, encrypted chat rooms where disaffected soldiers gathered to share grievances and conspiracy theories. And there, buried in 3 different threads, was a pattern. References to something called Project Reckoning. No details, no specifics, just cryptic mentions of making the system pay, of showing them what it felt like to be discarded, of a day when everything would change. Maya cross-referenced the usernames against known associates of Webb. Found matches, lots of them, all over the country, all former military, all carrying the same resentment. Her phone rang. Unknown number again. She almost didn't answer, but something made her thumb accept the call. "You should have stayed dead." The voice was male, young, filtered through the same modulator Webb's contact had used. "Coming back just makes you a target." "Who is this?" "Someone who knows what you are. What you did. All those missions they erased from the records. We remember. We were there. We saw what Death Angel really was." A pause. "And now we're going to show everyone else." The line went dead. Maya stared at the phone, her mind racing. Webb's team hadn't just been planning to hit Fort Kearney. They'd been planning something bigger, and even with Webb in custody and his immediate cell dismantled, the larger network was still out there, still watching, still waiting. She called Coleman. He answered on the first ring. "Please tell me you're resting." "Someone just called me, threatened to expose what I did as 847. Coleman swore. "Did you trace it?" "No time, but they knew details, things that aren't in any public record. They were part of the same network as Webb, but they're not in custody." "How many are we talking about?" "I don't know. I found references on some forums to something called Project Reckoning, multiple participants, coordinated action." Maya pulled up the forum threads on her laptop. Fort Kearney might have just been the opening move. "Send me everything you found. I'll get analysts on it." Coleman's voice was tight. "And Maya, watch your back. If they know who you are and where you are, they might try something. Let them try." She hung up and forwarded the forum screenshots to Coleman's secure email. Then she sat back and tried to think like Webb, like someone who'd spent years planning revenge. Fort Kearney had been about making a statement, about showing vulnerability. But if there were more cells, more operations planned, what would they target next? The answer came to her with sickening clarity. They wouldn't go after another base. Too predictable. Security would be heightened everywhere after Fort Kearney. No, they'd go after something softer, something that would generate maximum outrage and media coverage. A VA hospital, a veterans memorial, a military family event. Places where the people the system had failed would be gathered. Places where the irony of the attack would amplify the message. Maya grabbed her phone again, called Hayward. "I need you to pull security protocols for every military-adjacent soft target within 500 miles. Hospitals, memorials, family readiness centers, recruiting stations, anything that's not a hardened installation." "That's a lot of locations. What am I looking for?" "Anything scheduled in the next 72 hours. Public events. Large gatherings. Anywhere that fits the profile of maximum casualties with minimum security." "Maya, if you're right about this." "I am." Webb's arrest didn't stop anything. It just put the rest of his network on alert. She paced her small apartment. They're going to accelerate their timeline. Strike while security's still scrambling to respond to Fort Kearney. We've got maybe a day, Probably less. Hayward was quiet for a beat. The VA hospital in Kansas City is hosting a memorial service tomorrow, honoring fallen soldiers from the last 20 years. Expected attendance is over 1,000 people, including families, veterans, active duty. Maya's stomach dropped. That's the target. You don't know that for sure. Yes, I do. It's perfect from their perspective. Symbolic, high profile, devastating. She grabbed her keys. I'm heading there now. Wait, you need to coordinate with... There's no time for coordination. If I'm right, they're already in position, already setting up. I need to get there and figure out how they're planning to hit it before 1,000 people gather in one place for what amounts to target practice. She hung up before Hayward could argue further. Threw on clean clothes, grabbed the weapon she'd kept from last night. Pierce and Brennan would be furious about that, but she'd deal with their anger later, and headed for her truck. Kansas City was a 3-hour drive under normal conditions. Maya made it in 2.5, pushing the Silverado harder than she should have while her mind ran through scenarios. A bomb in the auditorium, a shooter in an elevated position, chemical agent in the ventilation. The possibilities multiplied the more she thought about it, each one worse than the last. The VA hospital sat in a medical district on the eastern edge of the city, a sprawling complex of buildings that served thousands of veterans. The memorial service was scheduled for the main auditorium, a standalone building with glass walls and an open plaza out front. Beautiful architecture, terrible security. Maya parked 2 blocks away and approached on foot. The plaza was already being set up, chairs arranged in rows, a stage with podiums and flags, sound equipment being tested. Workers moved with the casual efficiency of people who'd done this before. No sense of urgency, no awareness that they might be setting up a kill zone. She circled the perimeter, looking for anything out of place. Security cameras covered most angles, but there were gaps. The parking garage across the street had a direct line of sight to the plaza. So did the office building to the north. And the auditorium itself had multiple entry points, not all of them monitored. Too many vulnerabilities. Too many ways to hit it. Maya's phone buzzed. Coleman. Hayward called me. Said you're in Kansas City. Please tell me you're not doing what I think you're doing. I'm scouting the memorial site. Security's minimal. If Webb's network is planning to hit this, they'll walk right in. Then let local PD handle it. Call in a threat. Get the event postponed. On what evidence? A hunch? They'll laugh me off the phone. Maya moved toward the parking garage. I need something concrete. Proof they're planning to strike here. Or you need to stop playing lone wolf and wait for backup. There's no time for backup. The service is tomorrow morning. If they're going to act, they're already here. She ended the call and entered the parking garage. 5 levels, mostly empty at this time of day. Her footsteps echoed on concrete as she climbed the stairs, checking each level. Nothing on 1. Nothing on 2. 3 was... She froze. A white panel van sat in the far corner of level 3, backed into a space that gave it a clear view of the plaza through the open-air sides of the garage. New York plates. Rental company sticker. Windows tinted dark enough to hide anyone inside. Maya approached from the side, keeping to the concrete pillars for cover. The van's engine was off, but as she got closer, she could hear voices inside. Muffled. At least 2 people. She pulled out her phone, took photos of the plates, the van, the position, then crept closer until she was within earshot. Said to wait for the signal. We don't move until he confirms the primary device is in position. Male voice. Young. Nervous. I know what he said. I was on the same briefing call. Different voice. Older. Calmer. But if security sweeps this garage, we're done. We should relocate. To where? This is the best vantage point. We can cover the whole plaza from here. Maya's mind cataloged the information. Primary device, vantage point, cover the plaza. They were planning a coordinated attack, explosives plus shooters. Maximum casualties, exactly what she'd feared. She needed to call this in, get a tactical team here, arrest these people before they could execute. But if she backed away now, they might notice, might bolt, might detonate early, or relocate to a position she couldn't find. The decision made itself. Maya drew her weapon, moved to the van's rear doors, and yanked them open in one smooth motion. 2 men inside, both scrambling for weapons. She fired twice, non-lethal shots to shoulders that dropped them before they could return fire. They collapsed in the van, screaming, weapons clattering to the floor. Maya kicked the guns away, dragged the first man out. How many more? How many other teams? He just groaned, clutching his shoulder. She turned to the second man, older and marginally more composed despite the bullet wound. Answer the question or the next one goes through your knee. You're insane, he gasped. You can't. I just did. Now talk. The man's face was pale with pain and shock, but his eyes held something else. Calculation. Like he was weighing whether to talk or stay silent. Maya pressed the barrel of her gun against his knee. 3 teams, he said quickly. 3 teams total. We're Overwatch. There's a device team inside the auditorium placing explosives, and a cleanup team positioned to hit first responders when they arrive. Where's the cleanup team? I don't know. Different cell, compartmentalized. We only know our piece. Maya believed him. It was smart operational security. Each cell only knew what they needed to execute their part. If one got captured, they couldn't compromise the whole operation. She called Coleman. I've got 2 in custody, parking garage across from the Kansas City VA. But there are more. At least 1 team inside the auditorium planting explosives, another team waiting to ambush first responders. Jesus. Okay, I'm calling this into FBI. They'll mobilize. There's no time for mobilization. The device team is inside right now. If they finish placing the explosives and leave, we lose them. Maya checked the van, found 2 rifles, ammunition, tactical gear. I'm going in. Alone? That's suicide. Then send backup, but I'm not waiting. She hung up before he could argue, stripped the tactical vest off one of the wounded men and put it on. Grabbed one of the rifles, an AR-15 civilian model but effective. Then she zip-tied the 2 men using restraints from their own gear and headed for the auditorium at a run. The main entrance was locked, but a service door on the south side opened with a hard shove. Maya entered into a maintenance corridor that smelled like floor cleaner and old carpet. Voices echoed from deeper in the building, workers still setting up for tomorrow. She moved through the corridors, clearing each turn, every sense heightened. The auditorium was massive, easily 1,200 seats, multiple levels, a balcony section that would be perfect for placing charges where they'd bring down the whole structure. She found the device team on the second level, 2 figures in maintenance uniforms working methodically to attach packages to structural supports. They'd already placed 4 that she could see, each one connected by wire to what looked like a central detonator. Maya raised the rifle. Don't move! Both figures froze. Then the one on the left reached for something on his belt. Not a weapon, a trigger. Maya shot him in the arm before he could press it. The device clattered to the floor. The second figure lunged for it. She shot him too. Center mass this time because he was moving and she couldn't risk a miss. He went down hard. The first man was still conscious, clutching his arm and moaning. Maya kicked the trigger away, then dragged him up by his collar. How's it armed? Remote? Timer? Dead man switch? Timer, he gasped. 30-minute delay from activation. When were you supposed to activate? Tomorrow morning, 20 minutes before the ceremony starts. Maya checked the devices. None of them showed active timers. Good. She grabbed the detonator, photographed all the explosive placements, then called Hayward. I've got the device team. 2 suspects down, explosives placed but not armed. I need EOD here now. They're already en route, FBI 2. Coleman got through to them. Hayward's voice was tight. But Maya, if there's a cleanup team positioned to hit first responders, I know. They'll ambush whoever shows up. She looked around the auditorium, thinking, we need to draw them out before EOD arrives. Make them think the operation's been compromised so they move and we can spot them. How? Maya smiled without humor. By making it look like I'm arresting the device team publicly, perp walking them out the front entrance. If the cleanup team is watching, they'll either try to stop me or they'll bug out. Either way, we'll see them coming. That makes you the target. I've been the target before. She hauled the wounded device team member to his feet, grabbed the dead one's ID badge, and forced the wounded man toward the main entrance. He stumbled, leaving a blood trail on the carpet, but she kept him moving. Outside, the plaza was still being set up, workers oblivious to what had almost happened inside. Maya pushed through the main doors, making it obvious she had a prisoner, held her rifle in one hand, the man's collar in the other, started walking toward the parking garage where her truck waited. She made it 20 feet before the first shot cracked past her ear. The cleanup team, positioned on the office building's roof, exactly where she would have put them. Maya shoved the wounded man behind a concrete planter and returned fire. 3 quick bursts that sent the shooter ducking back. Then more shots from a different angle, the parking garage. A second shooter using the van's position for cover. They'd set up crossfire. Smart. Maya was pinned. The concrete planter provided cover from the roof but left her exposed to the garage. She couldn't advance, couldn't retreat. And she had a wounded suspect who'd bleed out if she didn't get him medical attention soon. Her phone rang. Coleman. She answered while squeezing off another burst toward the garage. Little busy here. FBI tactical is 3 minutes out. Hold position. Negative. I've got wounded and I'm in a crossfire. I need to move. Then move. We'll cover the suspects. Maya grabbed the wounded man, hauled him up, and ran for the nearest building, a medical office attached to the VA complex. More shots followed her, rounds sparking off concrete and shattering glass. She felt something tug at her tactical vest, a round that would have hit center mass if not for the armor. She crashed through the medical office door and kept moving, dragging the suspect through a waiting room where startled patients screamed and dove for cover. Out the back exit, into an alley. Finally, a position where she wasn't completely exposed. The wounded man collapsed, his breathing shallow. Maya checked his wound. The bleeding had slowed, but he needed a hospital. She called 911, gave them the location, then moved back toward the plaza. Sirens filled the air now. FB local PD, ambulances. The cleanup team would either engage or flee. Either way, they'd be exposed. Maya circled back through the medical district, coming up on the office building from the south. She took the stairs to the roof access, moving fast and quiet. The door was propped open with a brick. Rookie mistake, but it worked in her favor. She pushed through and came face to face with a man holding a sniper rifle. He turned, tried to bring the weapon around. Maya put 2 rounds in his chest before he could complete the motion. He dropped. 1 down. But the second shooter was still in the garage, still a threat to the first responders flooding the plaza. Maya ran back down the stairs, across the plaza, now evacuated, workers scattered, and into the parking garage. Level 3. She could hear the shooter repositioning, trying to find an angle on the FBI vehicles below. She came up behind him with her rifle raised. It's over. He turned and Maya recognized his face. Not from a file or a briefing, from memory. Afghanistan, 2019. A forward operating base where she'd been providing medical support. He'd been infantry then, young and eager and full of that particular brand of righteousness that turned toxic when it didn't have an outlet. Jackson, she said, lower the weapon. He stared at her, recognition dawning. You. They said you were dead. They were wrong. Now lower the weapon before this gets worse. Worse? He laughed, a broken sound. It's already worse. They threw us away, used us up and threw us away. Webb was right. The only way to make them see is to hit them where it hurts. This isn't hitting them. It's murdering innocent people. There are no innocent people. Everyone's complicit. Everyone who stands by while veterans sleep on streets and eat out of dumpsters and blow their brains out because the system that sent them to war can't be bothered to help them when they come home. His voice cracked. You know what that's like. You lived it. So why are you stopping us? Maya kept her rifle steady. Because killing people at a memorial service doesn't fix anything. It just creates more pain, more trauma, more broken people who will spend the rest of their lives trying to make sense of why they survived and others didn't. Better than being forgotten. You won't be forgotten. You'll be remembered as terrorists, as murderers, as the people who attacked their own. Is that really the legacy you want? Jackson's hands shook on his rifle. For a moment, Maya thought he'd lower it, thought she could talk him down. Then his expression hardened. At least we'll be remembered, he said, and started to raise the weapon. Maya fired. Once, twice, center mass. He went down. She stood over him while FBI tactical swarmed the garage, their voices calling out clear and suspect down in a chorus that echoed off concrete. Stood there while they secured the scene and called for medics and started the process of cataloging evidence. Stood there until Coleman appeared at her side and gently took the rifle from her hands. It's done, he said quietly. You stopped them. Maya looked at Jackson's body. Looked at the plaza below where a memorial service would still happen tomorrow, where people would gather to honor the fallen, without knowing how close they'd come to joining them. Looked at the city spreading out beyond, full of people living their lives in blissful ignorance of the violence that had almost touched them. "For now," she said. "But there are more. Webb was right about that. There are always more." Her phone buzzed. Another text from an unknown number. This time, no threats. Just 5 words that made her blood run cold. "Your father would be disappointed." Maya stared at the message. Her father had been dead for 6 years, killed in a training accident that wasn't an accident. She'd investigated it herself after his death, found evidence of negligence that got buried by the chain of command. That investigation was what had led to her recruitment into Unit 847. What had turned her from a medic into something else. And now someone was using his memory as a weapon. She showed the text to Coleman. His face went pale. "How do they know about your father?" "I don't know. His file is classified. The investigation is sealed." Maya's hand started shaking again. "Unless someone with access leaked it. Someone inside." Coleman met her eyes. "We've got a mole." The implications hit like falling through ice into dark water. Maya stood in the parking garage surrounded by FBI tactical teams and the bodies of people she'd just killed, and all she could think about was who had access to her father's file. Who knew the details of his death? Who could connect those dots to her current location and use them as psychological warfare? Coleman was already on his phone, voice low and urgent. "I need a security audit on all personnel with access to Unit 847 records. Yes, all of them. I don't care what time it is in Washington." He paused, listening. "Because we've got a leak and it just compromised an active operator." Maya walked to the edge of the parking level, looked down at the plaza where workers were being interviewed by agents in windbreakers with yellow letters across the back. The memorial service would still happen tomorrow. The families would gather. They'd honor their dead without knowing how many more names had almost been added to that wall. Her phone rang. "Hayward. Are you okay?" Define okay. "Are you injured? Do you need medical attention?" "No." Maya watched an ambulance pull away, lights flashing. "But we've got a bigger problem than Webb's network. Someone's feeding them information, someone who knows things they shouldn't." "The text about your father. That file is classified above top secret. Only a handful of people even know it exists. So either someone with clearance is actively helping these people, or they've compromised our system so thoroughly that nothing's secure anymore." Hayward was quiet for a moment. "There's a third option. What if the mole isn't feeding information to Webb's network? What if they're part of it? What if someone in the chain of command is actually running this whole operation?" The thought had already occurred to Maya, but hearing it said aloud made it real in a way that turned her stomach. If someone with authority was orchestrating this, someone who could move freely, access classified data, manipulate security protocols, then everything they'd stopped so far had just been the opening act. Coleman finished his call and walked over. "We need to get you somewhere secure. If they know about your father, they know enough to find you anywhere you go." "I'm not hiding." "I'm not suggesting hiding. I'm suggesting we move you to a controlled location where we can protect you while we figure out who's behind this." "And where would that be?" "Fort Kearny? They already penetrated that." "Another base? Same problem." Maya turned to face him. "Everywhere you'd take me is part of the system, and if the system's compromised, nowhere's safe. So what do you suggest?" Maya thought for a moment. "We go on offense. Stop reacting and start hunting. Someone's been pulling strings from the shadows. Let's drag them into the light." "How?" "By giving them what they want. They sent that text to rattle me, to make me emotional and sloppy. So let's play that game. Let me go public. Do an interview about stopping the attacks. Make myself the biggest target possible." She met Coleman's eyes. "Whoever's running this won't be able to resist. They'll come after me, and when they do, we'll be ready." Coleman looked at her like she'd suggested setting herself on fire. "That's insane. You'd be painting a target on your back." "The target's already there. I'm just making it bigger and brighter so we can see who's aiming at it." Before Coleman could respond, his phone rang again. He listened, his expression darkening with each second. When he hung up, he looked sick. "That was Washington. The security audit turned up something. 3 days ago, someone accessed your Unit 847 file from a terminal at Fort Kearny, used valid credentials and proper authorization codes, copied the entire thing." "Who?" "Captain Torres." Maya felt the ground shift. Torres, whose daughter had been kidnapped. Torres, who'd been manipulated into making that phone call. Torres, who'd been a victim in all of this. Or so they'd thought. "Where is he now?" Maya asked. "Still at the base hospital, under guard supposedly, but if he's the leak..." Maya was already running for her truck. Coleman followed, yelling for FBI to send units to Fort Kearny, but she didn't wait. 3 hours back the way she'd come, pushing the Silverado until the engine screamed. Her mind raced faster than the speedometer. Torres had played them, the emotional father desperate to save his daughter, the reluctant participant who'd given them just enough information to seem cooperative while actually controlling the narrative. He'd directed their attention to Webb's network while hiding his own role. And they'd bought it completely because the story fit too perfectly with what they'd expected to find. She called Hayward. "Torres is the mole. Get security to his room now and lock it down. He doesn't leave, doesn't make calls, doesn't talk to anyone until I get there. Maya, if you're wrong, I'm not. He accessed my classified file 3 days ago. That's not a coincidence." She heard Hayward relay orders, heard the urgency in his voice as he mobilized. Then he came back on the line. "Security's responding, but Maya, his daughter, they rescued her from that farmhouse. She confirmed she'd been held captive for 2 weeks. How does that fit if he's complicit?" "I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out." The drive back to Fort Kearny passed in a blur of highway and rage. Maya's hands gripped the wheel so tight her knuckles went white. She'd been played. They all had. And if Torres was working with Webb's network, how much of what they'd stopped had been real versus theater designed to make them think they'd won? She hit the base just after midnight, flashed her credentials at the gate, and drove straight to the hospital. Hayward met her at the entrance, his face grim. Security got to his room. He's gone. Gone how? Best we can tell, he left about 30 minutes ago. Told the guard he needed to use the bathroom, slipped out through a maintenance corridor. Hayward pulled up security footage on a tablet. "We've got him on camera leaving through the east exit. Got into a civilian vehicle, gone." Maya watched the footage. Torres moved without hesitation, without the limp from his injured leg that had been so prominent earlier. He walked like someone who'd never been hurt, like someone who'd been faking the whole time. "His daughter," Maya said. "Where is she?" "Medical's evaluating her. She's been through trauma counseling, physical exam. Take me to her, now." They found her in a private room, a girl of maybe 19 with her father's eyes and her mother's mouth. She looked up when they entered, fear flashing across her face before she masked it with confusion. "Who are you?" she asked. Maya studied her, looking for tells, for the micro-expressions that would reveal whether she was a victim or an accomplice. "I'm the person who stopped your father from getting a lot of people killed. And right now I need you to tell me the truth about what happened to you. I was kidnapped, held in some farmhouse. 2 weeks of..." Her voice cracked convincingly. "It was horrible." "Who took you?" "I don't know. Men with masks. They never said their names. But they let you call your father, let you talk to him so he'd know you were alive. Once. They let me talk once." Tears now, sliding down her cheeks. "I was so scared." Maya sat on the edge of the bed, kept her voice soft. "I believe you were scared. I believe terrible things happened. But I need you to understand something. Your father just ran. He's gone. And the information he had access to is going to get people killed if we don't stop it. So if you know where he went, if you know what he's planning, now's the time to help us." The girl's expression didn't change. "I don't know anything. I was a hostage. Were you?" Maya leaned closer. "Because here's what doesn't make sense. Your father accessed classified files about me 3 days ago, which means he was working with Webb's network before you were even taken. Which means either your kidnapping was staged to give him cover, or you were actually taken by his own people to make the whole thing more convincing. That's crazy. My father would never..." "Your father just fled a military base after being identified as the source of a major security breach. So whatever you think he would or wouldn't do, you're wrong." Maya stood. "Last chance. Where is he?" The girl looked at Hayward, at the guard by the door, at Maya. Her face was a mask of fear and confusion and something else. Something harder. "I want a lawyer," she said. Maya walked out before she did something she'd regret. Hayward caught up with her in the hallway. "You think she's part of it?" "I think she knows more than she's saying. Whether she's complicit or just loyal to her father, I don't know, but she's not going to help us." "So what now?" Maya pulled out her phone, opened the text about her father, studied the number it came from. Now we trace this. Find out where Torres is running to. And we end this before anyone else dies. Coleman called while they were setting up the trace. We've got a problem. Torres isn't just running. He's activated something. We're getting chatter on the same forums you found earlier. People talking about Project Reckoning going live ahead of schedule. Multiple targets, coordinated strikes. How many targets? We don't know. But the language suggests it's big. Bigger than Kansas City. Bigger than Fort Kearny. Maya closed her eyes, felt the exhaustion trying to drag her down. Fought it back because there was no time for exhaustion. Get me every resource you have, every analyst, every field agent, every contact in law enforcement. We need to figure out what they're hitting and when. Already on it, but Maya, if Torres has been planning this for as long as it seems, he's had time to set up contingencies. Redundancies. Even if we stop the primary attack, there could be secondaries we don't know about. Then we keep going until we've stopped them all. The next 6 hours were a blur of phone calls and data analysis and the kind of frantic coordination that happened when multiple agencies tried to work together against a clock. Maya sat in a conference room at Fort Kearny, surrounded by screens showing different pieces of the puzzle. Forms, financial records, travel patterns, phone metadata, everything they could pull on Torres and his known associates. A pattern emerged. Over the last 3 months, Torres had traveled to 17 different cities, always for official reasons, conferences, training, coordination meetings. But in each city, he'd made contact with former military personnel, all of them dishonorably discharged, all of them with grievances. He was recruiting, Hayward said, pointing at the map where red pins marked each location. Building cells in major metropolitan areas across the country. Maya studied the map. New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, Houston, Atlanta, Phoenix. Every major city had a pin, which meant every major city potentially had a cell ready to strike. We can't protect everywhere, Coleman said from the speakerphone. Even if we notify local authorities, there's too much ground to cover. We don't need to protect everywhere. Maya traced the pattern with her finger. We need to figure out the priority targets. What would have the most impact? What would make the biggest statement? She thought about Webb's words, about making the system pay, about showing that discarded soldiers were better than the ones the military kept, about creating a moment that would force people to pay attention. The answer hit her like a physical blow. Tomorrow's Veterans Day. The room went silent. Then everyone started moving at once, pulling up schedules and public events and security protocols. Veterans Day meant parades and memorials and ceremonies in every major city. Thousands of people gathered in the open, soft targets everywhere. That's it, Maya said. That's the target. Not one location. All of them. Every major Veterans Day event across the country. They're going to turn a day of remembrance into a massacre. Coleman swore on the other end of the line. We need to cancel everything. Issue a nationwide alert. We don't have the authority, Hayward said. And even if we did, who's going to believe it? There's no specific threat, no confirmed intelligence, just our analysis. Then we make them believe it. Maya pulled out her phone. I'm calling Director Pierce. If anyone can authorize a nationwide response, it's DOD oversight. Pierce answered on the third ring, his voice thick with sleep. This better be important, Reeves. Project Reckoning is real and it's happening tomorrow. Multiple cells planning coordinated attacks on Veterans Day events across the country. We need a nationwide security alert and we need it now. Silence on the other end. Then, based on what evidence? Maya laid it out in rapid, precise detail. The recruiting pattern, the forum chatter, Torres's access to classified information, the cells they'd already disrupted, the timing that pointed to Veterans Day. When she finished, Pierce was quiet for a long moment. If you're wrong, this creates a panic that undermines every Veterans Day event in the country. People will be terrified to honor their dead. If I'm right and we do nothing, they'll have good reason to be terrified. I need something concrete, not analysis, not pattern recognition, actual evidence of a specific threat. Maya felt her frustration rising. By the time we have concrete evidence, people will be dying. That's how these attacks work. They stay hidden until the moment they strike. Then give me something I can take to the Joint Chiefs, something that justifies shutting down public events nationwide on the most important day of the year for military families. The line went dead. Maya threw her phone across the room. It hit the wall and shattered. Hayward picked up the pieces. We need another approach. Like what? Torres is in the wind. His network is activated. We've got less than 12 hours before ceremonies start on the East Coast. Maya paced the room. We're out of time and out of options. Not quite. Hayward held up the broken phone. The text about your father, we never finished the trace. Maya had forgotten about it in the chaos. Can you still pull it? Maybe, if the phone's SIM card survived. He extracted it carefully, inserted it into a computer. Give me a few minutes. Those minutes stretched while Maya stood at the window watching the base prepare for morning. Soldiers doing PT, vehicles moving to formations. The normal rhythm of military life continuing because most people had no idea how close everything was to falling apart. The trace came back with a location. Not a cell tower ping. An actual address. A warehouse in Wichita, 2 hours west. That's where the text originated, Hayward said. 47 minutes ago. Maya grabbed her gear. Then that's where we're going. We should wait for backup, get a tactical team. There's no time for tactical teams. If Torres is there, if that's where he's coordinating from, we need to hit it now before he relocates. Coleman's voice came through the speaker. I'm sending FBI to that address. They can be there in 90 minutes. Torres will be gone in 90 minutes. Maya headed for the door. I'm going now. FBI can catch up. She made it to her truck before Hayward caught her. I'm coming with you. This isn't your fight. The hell it isn't. Torres used my base, compromised my people, made me look like an idiot for trusting him. Hayward's jaw was set. I'm coming. They took Maya's truck, pushing it hard through pre-dawn darkness. The warehouse sat in an industrial park on Wichita's east side, surrounded by other buildings that looked abandoned or forgotten. No lights, no vehicles visible. It looked empty, which meant either they'd missed him or it was a trap. Maya parked 2 blocks away and approached on foot. Hayward stayed close, his weapon drawn and ready. They'd left behind the tactical team, the backup, the safety net of proper procedure. Just 2 people moving through shadows toward a building that might contain answers or might contain death. The warehouse had a loading dock on one side and a personnel entrance on the other. Maya tested the personnel door, unlocked. She exchanged a look with Hayward. Definitely a trap. She pushed the door open anyway. Inside was darkness and the smell of old concrete and motor oil. Her eyes adjusted slowly, picking out shapes. Stacks of pallets, industrial shelving, a forklift sitting silent in the corner, and at the far end, a light. Single bulb hanging over a makeshift desk where someone sat with their back to the door. Maya moved closer, weapon up. The figure didn't turn, didn't acknowledge their presence, just sat there, still as death. She came around the desk and felt her stomach drop. Captain Torres. Dead. Single gunshot to the head. The gun still in his hand. On the desk in front of him, a laptop showing a message typed in 72-point font. You were too late. Hayward swore. Maya checked the body, still warm. He'd been dead maybe 20 minutes, which meant whoever had sent that text had done it after killing Torres, had set them up to find this. She looked at the laptop. One window open showing the message. Another window behind it showing code. Lots of code. A timer counting down. 0 hours, 4 minutes, 17 seconds. 4 minutes and 17 seconds. We need to leave, Hayward said, reading over her shoulder. Now! But Maya was already studying the code, trying to understand what it was controlling. Not a bomb. The syntax was wrong. This was a transmission protocol, an automated message system set to broadcast something at 0. She clicked through the files, found video files, dozens of them, each one labeled with a city name and a timestamp. New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, Atlanta, all scheduled to go out simultaneously when the timer hit 0. Maya opened one. The video showed a figure in tactical gear standing in front of a camera. Behind the figure, tied to chairs with bags over their heads, were 3 people. The figure spoke, voice modulated. This is a message to every soldier who's been cast aside, every veteran who's been forgotten, every person who gave everything and got nothing in return. Today, we take back what's ours. The figure pulled the bag off one of the hostages. A woman, middle-aged, terrified. She started to scream. The video cut off. Maya felt ice in her veins. This wasn't just about attacks on Veterans Day events. They'd taken hostages. We're planning to execute them on camera, broadcast it nationally as a statement. We need to stop this transmission, Hayward said. Maya tried. Pulled up the task manager, tried to kill the process. It wouldn't die. Tried to shut down the laptop. It kept running on battery. Tried to disconnect the internet. The system switched to cellular backup. The timer kept counting down. 0 hours, 2 minutes, 43 seconds. Where are the hostages? Hayward asked. Maya pulled up another file. Addresses. 17 of them, each corresponding to one of the cities Torres had visited, each presumably holding hostages that would be executed the moment those videos went live. And there was no way to stop all of them, no way to even stop one of them in time. The timer hit 0. The laptop screen flashed. Transmission complete. Maya stared at it, feeling the weight of failure crushing down. They'd been too late. The videos were out there now. Somewhere, 17 cells were preparing to execute hostages on camera while the whole country watched. Then her phone buzzed. A new text from the same unknown number. Check your email. She pulled out Hayward's phone, hers was still shattered, and opened her email. One new message, no subject line, just an attachment. She opened it. A video file. Different from the others. This one showed a figure without a mask standing in what looked like a command center. Behind him, monitors displayed all 17 hostage locations. He was older than Torres, harder, and when he smiled at the camera, Maya's blood went cold. Major Vickers, the officer who'd been at the motor pool coordinating the investigation, who'd had access to everything, who'd been there from the beginning. Hello, Death Angel, he said to the camera. By now you've realized that Torres was never the mastermind. He was just the face, the distraction. While you were busy chasing him, I've been orchestrating something much bigger. 17 cities, 17 hostages, all of them former soldiers who turned their backs on brothers and sisters who needed help, officers who signed dishonorable discharges, VA, administrators who denied benefits, politicians who voted against veteran support, all the people who helped create the system that destroys us. He stepped closer to the camera. You can't save them all. You can't even save one of them in the time you have left. So I'm giving you a choice. I'll release the locations of 16 hostages. You can save them. But the 17th, he smiled. The 17th dies. And you get to choose which one. You get to decide who's worth saving and who gets sacrificed, just like they did to us. The video ended. A new email arrived. 16 addresses, 16 locations where hostages were being held. All of them real. All of them confirmed. But the 17th was missing. And somewhere, a clock was ticking down to an execution that Maya had no way to stop. Maya stared at the 16 addresses on Hayward's phone screen while her mind raced through impossible calculations. 17 hostages, 16 locations, 1 missing, and Vickers sitting somewhere with a smile on his face waiting for her to play his sick game of who deserves to live and who deserves to die. Call Coleman, she said, her voice steadier than she felt. Get FBI to those 16 addresses immediately. Full tactical response. I want those people out in the next 30 minutes. Hayward was already dialing. Maya opened the video again, studying Vickers' face, looking for anything that might reveal where he was. The background was generic. Concrete walls, industrial lighting, could be anywhere. But there was something in the corner of the frame, a logo on one of the monitors. Partial. Blurred. She zoomed in, enhanced the image as much as the laptop's basic software would allow. 3 letters visible. AFB. Air Force Base. He was on an Air Force installation. But which one? She pulled up a map, started marking every AFB within a day's drive of Fort Kearney. 7 possibilities. Too many to check. She needed to narrow it down. Then she saw it. In the reflection on one of Vickers' monitors, a window. And through that window, barely visible, the distinctive shape of a B-2 stealth bomber on a tarmac. Only one base in the region operated B-2s. Whiteman Air Force Base, 70 miles south. Maya grabbed her keys. Vickers is at Whiteman. That's where the 17th hostage is. How do you... Hayward looked at the screen, saw what she'd seen. We need backup. Air Force Security, FBI. There's no time. By the time we coordinate with Whiteman's command structure, explain the situation, get authorization to search, She was already moving toward the truck. That hostage will be dead. Then what's your plan? Storm an active military base alone? Maya stopped at the truck door, met his eyes. I'm not asking you to come. This is on me, my history, my mess. But I'm going, with or without backup. Hayward stood there for maybe 3 seconds. Then he got in the passenger seat. Drive fast. The run to Whiteman took 45 minutes that felt like hours. Maya pushed the Silverado until the engine screamed while Hayward coordinated with Coleman, with FBI, with anyone who would listen. The 16 rescue operations were underway. Early reports said hostages were being recovered, cells being disrupted. But the clock was still ticking on number 17. They hit Whiteman's gate doing 70. The guard stepped out, weapon raised, yelling for them to stop. Maya slammed the brakes, held up her hands. I'm Maya Reeves. DIA has me in the system as an active consultant. I need to speak to your base commander immediately. There's a hostage situation on this installation right now. The guard looked skeptical, started to say something about proper channels and authorization. Then his radio crackled with an urgent transmission about an intruder alert in the maintenance sector, Vickers, making his move. That's him, Maya said. That's the hostile. Where's maintenance? The guard hesitated. Maya didn't. She floored the accelerator, crashed through the barrier arm, and followed the signs toward the maintenance complex. Behind her, sirens wailed. Security vehicles gave chase. She didn't slow down. The maintenance sector was a cluster of warehouses and hangars at the south end of the base. Maya saw movement near one of the buildings, a figure in combat gear dragging someone toward a vehicle. She aimed the truck at them and hit the gas. Vickers saw her coming, released his hostage and dove behind a concrete barrier, opened fire. Rounds punched through the Silverado's windshield. Maya ducked, kept driving, then yanked the wheel hard. The truck slammed into the barrier, pinning Vickers against the concrete. She was out and moving before the dust settled. Vickers was down but not out, reaching for his weapon. Maya kicked it away, put her boot on his chest. It's over. He laughed, blood on his teeth. Is it? 16 cells just got raided, but the video went out. The message is delivered. People saw what we're capable of. They'll remember. They'll remember you as a terrorist, a murderer, someone who took innocent people hostage and threatened to execute them on camera. Maya pressed harder. That's your legacy. Not a revolutionary, not a freedom fighter, just another broken man who couldn't find a better way to deal with his pain. You're one to talk. How many people have you killed, Death Angel? 47 confirmed. How many more that weren't confirmed? Vickers' smile was broken and bloody. We're the same. You just hide behind authorization and orders. I'm honest about what I am. We're nothing alike. Keep telling yourself that. Security vehicles surrounded them. Air Force police, weapons drawn, shouting commands. Maya raised her hands, stepped back. Let them take Vickers into custody. Let them secure the hostage, a former VA administrator who was shaking but alive. She found Hayward by the truck, nursing a cut on his forehead from where his head had hit the dashboard. You okay? Better than your truck. He looked at the smoking, bullet-riddled Silverado. That thing's never going to run again. It got us here. That's all that mattered. Coleman arrived 30 minutes later with FBI and enough federal agents to populate a small city. He found Maya sitting on the hood of her dead truck, watching the sun come up over Whiteman Air Force Base. All 16 hostages recovered, he said. All cells disrupted. Vickers is in custody. It's done. For now. For now is all we get. Coleman sat next to her. The videos never made it to public broadcast. We intercepted them before they hit social media. Some people saw them, but we're containing the spread. By tomorrow, this will be classified and buried. And Vickers will spend the rest of his life in a federal supermax, along with everyone we picked up from his network. Coleman paused. You saved a lot of lives, Maya. Again. I also killed people. Again. People who would have killed others if you hadn't stopped them. That's not the same thing. Maya looked at him. Isn't it? That's what Vickers said. That we're the same. That the only difference is I hide behind authorization. Vickers was trying to get in your head. Don't let him. Coleman's voice was firm. You didn't choose to become a weapon. You were made into one by a system that needed you to be. But when you walked away, when you tried to build a different life, that was you choosing. That was you saying the person you'd been turned into wasn't who you wanted to be. And yet here I am, right back in the same place. No, you're not. Coleman gestured toward the maintenance building where the hostage was being treated. You're not killing for orders anymore. You're not operating in the shadows because someone with stars on their shoulders said it was necessary. You're making your own choices about who to help and who to stop. That's the difference Vickers didn't understand. He let his rage define him. You didn't. Maya sat with that for a while, watched emergency vehicles come and go, watched the base wake up to news of what had almost happened, watched people who had no idea how close they'd come to tragedy go about their morning routines. Director Pierce showed up around 8, looking like he'd aged a decade overnight. He walked over to Maya with the expression of someone about to deliver bad news. The brass wants to debrief you, extensively. What you did last night, storming a military installation, engaging in combat operations without authorization, that's a lot of regulations you broke. I saved 17 people's lives. I know. Which is why you're not being arrested. Pierce's jaw tightened. But there are consequences. Your contract at Fort Kearny is terminated. You're being flagged in the system as a security risk. You won't be able to work on any military installation going forward. Maya had expected this, still hurt to hear it said out loud. So that's it? I get thrown away just like all the others? No. Pierce pulled out a folder. I'm offering you something different, a position with a joint task force I'm putting together. Focus on domestic extremism, particularly among veteran populations. You'd have autonomy, resources, the authority to operate the way you did last night, but with legal backing. Maya took the folder, didn't open it. You want me to hunt people like Webb and Vickers, people like me. I want you to help people before they become like Webb and Vickers. Early intervention, support systems, alternatives to the rage spiral that turns decorated soldiers into terrorists. Pierce met her eyes. You understand that world. You lived it. You can see the warning signs others miss. We need that. I need to think about it. Take your time, but not too much time. There are more out there. We both know it. Pierce left. Coleman stayed. They sat on the dead truck and watched the sun climb higher. You gonna take it? Coleman asked. I don't know. Part of me wants to say yes. Wants to believe I can make a difference. Prevent the next Webb or Vickers before they hurt anyone. Maya looked at her hands. But another part of me is so tired of being defined by violence, of having my value measured by how well I can stop threats or eliminate targets. I wanted to be a nurse, wanted to save lives in a clean, simple way that didn't involve weapons or tactics or people dying. You can still do that, can I? After everything that's happened? After what people know about me now? Maya shook her head. Death Angel's not a secret anymore. The story's gonna leak. Someone will talk. And when it does, every hospital, every clinic, every place that might hire me will see me as a liability, a killer pretending to be a healer. Or they'll see you as someone who's saved more lives than most doctors will see in a career. Someone who's proven they'll do whatever it takes to protect people. Coleman stood. You're not just one thing, Maya. You're not just the sniper or just the nurse. You're both. And maybe the world needs someone who can be both. He left her there with the folder and her thoughts and the ruins of her truck. Maya opened the folder, read through the proposal. The task force would have broad authority, real resources, the chance to actually change things instead of just reacting to crises. But it would also mean accepting that she'd never fully leave behind the person she'd been, never fully escape the shadows, never be just Maya Reeves, nurse, living a quiet life above a diner that smelled like bacon. Her phone buzzed. Hayward. You need to see this. She found him in one of the hangars, watching a television where news coverage was starting to filter in. Not about the hostages or the terrorist plot, that was classified, just like Pierce said, but about something else. A press conference. General Carson standing at a podium, his expression grave. Yesterday, elements within the veteran community orchestrated a coordinated domestic terror plot targeting multiple cities. Thanks to the efforts of law enforcement and military personnel working in coordination, this plot was disrupted. All hostages were recovered safely. The perpetrators are in custody. A reporter shouted a question about who stopped the attack. Carson paused. I can't discuss operational details, but I can say that one individual, working as a civilian consultant, was instrumental in identifying the threat, disrupting the network, and ultimately preventing what could have been a catastrophic loss of life. This person operated with exceptional skill, courage, and dedication to protecting others. While I cannot name them publicly due to security concerns, I want them to know they have the gratitude of this nation and this military. Maya watched the screen, felt something shift in her chest. Not pride exactly, but acknowledgement, recognition. After years of operating in darkness, of being erased from records, and denied recognition for what she'd done, someone was finally saying it mattered, that she mattered. Hayward turned to her. "That's you. He's talking about you. Can't prove it. Don't need to," he smiled. "Everyone who needs to know already knows. And the ones who don't know? They're safer for your work whether they realize it or not." Maya's phone rang. "Dr. Vance." She answered. "I saw the news," Vance said without preamble. "I don't know what you did or how you did it, but I know you were involved. I know you saved people." A pause. "Your administrative leave is over. When you're ready to come back to work, you've got a position waiting, no questions asked. Pierce said my contract was terminated. Pierce doesn't control my hospital. I do, and I need good nurses. You're the best I've got." Vance's voice softened slightly. "Look, I don't care what you used to be. I care what you are now. And right now, you're someone who saves lives. So stop overthinking it and get back here when you're ready." The line went dead. Maya stood in the hangar, holding a phone in one hand and Pierce's folder in the other. Two paths. Two futures. Two versions of who she could be. Or maybe not two. Maybe both. She looked at Hayward. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "When you found out who I really was, when you saw what I could do, were you scared of me?" Hayward thought for a moment. "Honestly, a little. But more than scared, I was glad. Glad that someone with your skills was on our side. Glad that when things went sideways, there was someone who could handle it." He met her eyes. "You're not a monster, Maya. You're a person who was given impossible choices and made the hard calls. That doesn't make you a hero, but it doesn't make you a villain either. It just makes you human." Maya thought about that, about all the impossible choices she'd made, all the hard calls, all the lives saved and lives taken and the weight of carrying both. She thought about her father, about how his death had started her down this path, how his memory had been used against her, how she'd spent years trying to honor him by being someone who helped instead of hurt. And she realized he would have understood, would have seen the necessity in what she'd done, would have been proud that she'd found a way to use her skills to protect people, even when it cost her everything. 3 months later, Maya Reeves stood in a conference room in Washington, D.C., briefing a task force on early intervention strategies for at-risk veterans. She wore civilian clothes, no uniform, no rank, just her name and her experience and the authority that came from knowing exactly what she was talking about. The program she'd designed was already showing results. 13 veterans identified as high risk for radicalization. 13 interventions. 13 people diverted from the path that had consumed Webb and Vickers and Torres. It wasn't dramatic. Wasn't the kind of thing that made headlines. But it was real. It was working. And at night, twice a week, she worked shifts at a clinic in Virginia that served homeless veterans. Put her nursing skills to use. Treated wounds and illnesses and listened to stories from people who'd been chewed up by the same system that had tried to destroy her. She couldn't save everyone. Couldn't fix everything. But she could help. Could make a difference one person at a time. Coleman found her after the briefing. "Good work in there. The committee's impressed. They should be. We've got actual data showing this works." Maya gathered her notes. "How's the Fort Kearny situation?" "Brennan retired. Security's been completely overhauled. No more bombs in conference rooms." Coleman smiled. "Hayward got promoted. He's running the whole operation now. He deserves it. So do you. This task force, what you're building, it's going to save lives. Not just the people you intervene with, but all the people they won't hurt because you reached them first." Maya looked out the window at the Washington skyline. Thought about all the cities where Webb's network had planned to strike. All the lives that would have been lost. All the families that would have been destroyed. "I used to think there were two versions of me," she said quietly. Death Angel and Maya Reeves, the killer and the healer, like I had to choose one or the other. And now? Now I know they're the same person. The skills that made me dangerous are the same skills that help me save people. The training that turned me into a weapon is what lets me recognize when others are being weaponized. I can't separate them. Don't want to anymore. Sounds like you found peace with it. Maya smiled. Not the hollow smile of someone pretending to be okay, but the real thing. Hard-earned and honest. Peace is a strong word, but acceptance? Yeah. I've accepted who I am, all of it. The parts that scare people and the parts that save them. Because you can't have one without the other. She walked out of the conference room, past the photos of government officials and military brass that lined the walls. Past the symbols of authority and power that had once defined her worth. Past all of it toward a future she was building herself, on her own terms. They'd called her just a nurse. They'd tried to erase her, tried to bury her, tried to make her disappear. But she'd refused to stay buried, had refused to let them define her, had taken every attempt to diminish her and turned it into fuel for becoming someone stronger. Someone who could operate in the light and the shadows. Someone who could heal and hurt and know the difference. Death Angel had been a weapon forged by necessity. Maya Reeves was the person who'd taken that weapon and learned to use it for something better than destruction. Together, they were something new, something that didn't fit in neat categories or official designations. They were exactly who they needed to be. No apologies, no regrets, just the hard-won knowledge that sometimes the people the system throws away are the ones best equipped to fix it. And as Maya walked out into the afternoon sun, she carried with her the faces of every person she'd saved, every veteran she'd helped, every crisis she'd stopped, not as weight or burden, but as proof that being underestimated, being dismissed, being counted out, none of it mattered if you refused to count yourself out. The nurse they'd mocked at the shooting range, the ghost they'd thought was dead, the woman they'd tried to bury. She was all of those things and more, and she was just getting started.